Oh God, that's not the first word you say on you. 3, 2, we're live.
Go balls deep in a face cut.
Is that the
No, stop.
Ian? Edit that out. Edit out that live.
I love it.
Edit out face
I love
cunt.
that Ian's
I
like,
can't.
don't say that when we go live. That's the first thing I say.
First word.
That's it.
Oh my
The first
God.
word was go, Ian.
Yeah,
That's
Ian.
fine.
God, let's
you
just
said
get to it.
5,
Here, there, look.
4,
It was
3.
you're all good, man.
2. I haven't seen anybody.
Nobody's on chat.
Nobody
Nobody
even
cares.
heard it, Ian. It's not a big deal.
They're
Everyone's fine.
here. They're all here. They'll
Nobody
hear the
even heard
audio.
it. Nobody even heard it.
They
Don't worry
are.
about it.
It's fine, Ian. You can get back
This
to your.
is amazing. That's such a great photo of him pointing, and then he's got, what is that, a Dominion voting machine?
That's amazing.
Yeah, it
I
is.
love the aliens behind him. That's terrific.
Yep.
That's great. It's a
They're
great
stealing our
image.
votes.
Hey guys,
They're illegal. That's what the problem is. They're
illegal.
illegal aliens. They're
Right,
illegal.
right.
You should have put like
Illegal.
them smoking a doobie or something. Like, I don't know. It's got to be something in there.
which of the alien for the alien from Aliens? I forgot what they're fucking called. Which of the xenomorph faces would smoke? Because doesn't it have like the face?
You know
tongue
what it is though? It's
thing?
when you put the cigarette in the small one, it can put it in your mouth like when you fold the cigarette back in. It's just like that. It's like this.
I think the
alien
big
can
head
bring
has a
the big one
cigar.
back in, and he can hide from the teacher, bring the cigarette in, and then it spits it out and takes a couple puffs and pulls it back in. Those things always make me think of those party favors where they like,
Oh yeah.
where they blow and they come out. I always, yeah.
God, I thought those movies were amazing when I was a kid.
Dude,
Those alien
the
movies.
second Alien movie is fucking amazing. If that comes on, I will watch the whole thing. I don't care where it is in the place.
I have seen Alien one time and Aliens one time. I have
Oh,
not seen them since I was a
love them
kid,
so
since I
much.
was whatever
No,
age
you
I saw.
watched Alien for Everyone's a
Oh,
Critic.
we did watch it for Everyone's a Critic.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, you watched-
and it was still good.
We watched Alien. I
right,
know that
but
we
not
watched
Aliens.
I'm
And we
not
didn't
sure.
watch any of the rest of
Yeah.
them. I do remember seeing the third one. I think it was Resurrection.
That one's not good.
It was not.
I don't dislike the fourth one's dumb, but
Oh, I didn't
I
see the
didn't
fourth one.
dislike it because she kind of turns into like a hybrid alien.
Okay.
Sigourney Weaver does, and it's kind of funny because she's like, and also like Ron, is his name Ron Perlman? Is that who the guy with the big face?
Yeah, the guy with the biggest
The guy
jaw
with
in
the big
Hollywood.
face. That
dude's jaw is he looks like a fucking nutcracker come
it's
to
a
life.
Fun movie. It's fun. I like it. I mean, it's stupid, but I like it. Whatever. The fourth one.
Resurrection is the fourth one?
What the
fuck is the
there
third
more
one?
after that? Did they do more? They did like dumb like prequels and shit after that, but they never did like another.
I don't know.
one
And then they
after
did
that.
Alien versus Predator. I didn't see that.
Yeah. Alien versus Predator.
That's Ian's favorite movie.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He's
Best
got.
movie that exists.
That's a
Wait a minute. Are you serious right now, Ian? Do you like that movie?
I mean,
You do. You love that
for what
movie
it
so
is,
much.
It's kind of fun.
That is-
it's kind of fun.
Everyone, you just heard
It's
it. That is
bad.
Ian's
It's bad.
favorite movie.
No, 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 no.
Prometheus.
Yeah, that's like a prequel though. That's like the prequel.
Is that
to
the
it
one
or
we
something,
watched
isn't it?
with what was the fucking horrible movie that we watched and reviewed with George Rabb? Was that
I
Prometheus?
don't remember.
There was a movie. There was a sci-fi movie. We watched it, and George Rabb watched it, and we reviewed it together. I'm trying to remember. I think it might have been. It was
This
so
literally
bad.
has fallen out of my head, dude. I
It
don't
was the
remember.
worst. And
don't
I think it
remember.
might have been Prometheus.
I
And
don't
it was
remember.
fucking nonsense.
All right, let's watch some stuff. What do you say?
Yeah,
are
let's do it.
Are we about that time, guys? How many people? We got enough people. We're gonna start doing it. All right.
Oh, hey, Sarah's
Hey,
in there.
Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
What's up?
Don't you donate,
Hey,
Sarah.
Sarah.
I'm not reading
What's
it.
up, Sarah?
Sarah, do me a favor. Just say something
No.
bad about Ian, just so we know it's
No.
really you.
It's
Why?
it
We
is
were
ex-
having such polite conversation.
Shut up, Ian. It's so nice to have our
right.
favorite employee.
It really is. Really is.
Here again.
Hey, you know what? Next week when you start the stream, can you put her face on there and put a play
Oh,
of the
yeah, that
month?
would be nice. Oh,
And
we
actually
should-
start every stream like that. Can you do that, Ian? Is that
I think she's
possible?
employee of the month this whole year.
Is that possible?
I think that's a given.
Can we do that?
No,
Right now.
my internet's bad. I can't.
Oh, somebody wants to know if we're drinking today. Do we have anything to try? We don't have anything interesting to try. We're out
We
of.
got that. It's still fucking dark as fuck.
Yeah,
over
I will
there.
say, guys, I drank this earlier just because, and this is the doctored up larceny.
Yeah.
And it might be one of my favorite
It's
things.
really good. It's
Like
really
I'm 100% going to buy these. I actually meant, Cecil, I forgot. I got a bottle of whiskey as a gift this week from work. And it was like one of those like things where like the company logo's etched on it and everything. And it was like Texas whiskey. And that's all it says on it. And then it's got like logo etching on it. So I opened it up out of curiosity, and I was going to bring it here, not because it's good, but because somebody else has to share my pain.
Is it?
It is like I forgot it. It's right by the door too. I was going to bring it with me. Imagine if whiskey could go bad, like could be left out, could like turn,
terrible.
could just sour out. It was atrocious. Yeah. I will bring it next week for you to try.
I'm anxious to try.
Atrocious.
I've had bad whiskey before. I drank.
My God.
So here's what we're gonna do tonight. We got 2 hearings to watch. I edited both of them down a little bit. So the first one's down to 45 minutes. That's hearing 4. That's when Schiff was the one who was controlling it. And then Kinzinger went today.
That's our boy.
And that's our guy from Illinois. We didn't vote for him.
No, he's a Republican.
Nor would we vote for him. But at least he's an Illinois.
But he's an
guy.
Illinoisan.
And I didn't get a chance to edit that one down too much. I got it down to an hour 10. It's a little over 2 hours long, but I got it down to an hour 10. I also want to let people know that if you were having trouble last week, you were struggling last week to hear Ludig, I did on our YouTube page, I wound up editing out all the pauses in Ludig's speech when he was giving it. And we actually cut him out of the show because it was
so bad you couldn't listen.
Bad audio.
Yeah.
So we cut it. But if you're interested, you go to our YouTube page and I edited out all his pauses, and while I don't know that it 100% makes sense, especially the first thing he says.
The first thing is some fucking circular nonsense. But the rest of his testimony, I think, with the edits,
it's more powerful.
It is actually powerful.
It's more powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna get started. Let's get started here with hearing number 4.
I'm excited because I haven't seen any of this.
So
this is the first one we've done. I've not seen any of it.
4. This was I cut out a lot of the procedural stuff in the beginning stuff. I tried to leave in stuff that I thought was worthwhile. I encourage you, if you think you're missing something, go watch the entire thing. We only have a limited amount of time to watch these things, so I have to edit them down. I'm not doing it for content. I'm doing it for what I think is relevant. But if you think something is more relevant, that stuff exists. Go watch it. Yep. I'm not trying to edit by omission or any of that stuff. So here we go.
The president's lie was and is a dangerous cancer.
I love they
on the
put
body politic.
I know they got the American Sign Language.
Convince Americans that they cannot trust their own elections, that any time they lose, it is somehow illegitimate. Then what is left but violence to determine who should govern? This brings us to the focus of today's hearing. When state elections officials refused to stop the count, Donald Trump and his campaign tried to put pressure on them. When state executive officials refused to certify him the winner of states he lost, he applied more pressure. When state legislators refused to go back into session and appoint Trump electors, he amped up the pressure yet again. Anyone who got in the way of Donald Trump's continued hold on power after he lost the election was the subject of a dangerous and escalating campaign of pressure.
Can you imagine if one of these guys just didn't take his calls?
Angry phone calls and texts,
how great would that be?
Intimidation, and all too often threats of violence and death.
That's the problem.
State legislators were singled out.
For sure.
So too were statewide elections officials. Even local elections workers, diligently doing their jobs, were accused of being criminals and had their lives turned upside down. As we will show,
turned upside down.
The president's supporters heard the former president's claims of fraud and the false allegations he made against state and local officials as a call to action.
Stop the steal! Stop the steal! Stop the steal! You're a threat to democracy! You're a threat to free and honest elections!
Somebody had a box of wine.
Right? That lady's just checking her Instagram. Everyone else is yelling.
And then about 45 minutes later, we started to hear the noises outside my home, and my stomach sunk, and I thought, it's me. And then it's just, we don't know what's gonna. I mean, the uncertainty of that was what was the fear. Like, are they coming with guns? Are they gonna attack my house? I'm in here with my kid. I'm trying to put him to bed, and so it was that was the scariest moment, just not knowing what was going to happen.
This pressure campaign against state and local officials spanned numerous
These are
contested
just fucking
states.
people going to work.
As you will
man.
see
I
in
know.
this video,
That's the
produced
Secretary
by
of
the
State.
Select
That's not.
Committee.
That's not somebody making millions.
Somebody in
My
the
name
deep
is Josh
state.
Right?
Rosselman. I'm an investigative counsel for the House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol. Beginning in late November 2020, the president
They
and
let
his
him out of
lawyers
middle school to
started
do
appearing
this?
before state
It's
legislators,
amazing.
urging them to give their electoral votes to
He's a
Trump.
baby, but he
even
also is a
though he
baby
lost
that's
the
never
popular vote.
slept. Look
I
under his
represent
eyes.
President Trump along with Jenna Ellis.
We're at the Ramada.
This is our fourth or fifth hearing.
This election has to be turned around because we won Pennsylvania by a lot and we won all of these swing states by a lot.
This was a strategy with both practical and legal elements.
He seriously
The
called
Select Committee
in.
has
Okay,
obtained
hold on.
email-
Yeah.
Hold on, Ian. He called in to with his the lady's on her iPhone and she's holding it up to the speaker. Is there a better way to do that?
They need an Ian.
Nope.
Nope.
That's the way to do it.
The only way he could have improved the sound is if he called from his AirPods.
for just 2
I'm in
days
my
after the
Airbnb making this phone call right now. Excuse the
Air Force
echo.
One.
election, in which a Trump campaign lawyer named Cleta Mitchell asked another Trump lawyer,
Cleta
John
Mitchell?
Eastman, to write a memo justifying
When Cletus
the
is in
idea.
charge, we're fucked.
When do you remember this coming up as an option in the post-election period for the first time?
Right after the election. It
Oh,
might have been
Cleta.
before the election.
Eastman prepared a memo.
She looks like she's
attempting
ready to
to
churn some
justify the
butter.
strategy, which
Like,
was
what is with
circulated to the
that?
Trump
She
White
looked
House,
Amish.
Rudy
Holy
Giuliani's legal
shit.
team, and state legislators around the country. And he
She actually looked like she was cosplaying Betsy Ross.
she's sewing an American flag with like 13 stars on it as holy
They're just all
shit.
Trump stars.
appeared before the Georgia state legislature to advocate for it publicly.
You could also do what the Florida legislature
Okay.
was prepared
This
to do.
is the best.
Which is to adopt a
Look at
slate
Eastman's
of
using that fake ass background, and then you could see his fucking his headphone keeps folding in and out of the background.
electors yourselves. And when you add in the mix of the significant statistical
It's sucking his
anomalies and
head in.
sworn affidavits and video evidence of outright election fraud, I don't think it's just your authority
chair
to do
looks
that, but
huge
quite
for
frankly,
you.
I think you have a duty to do that to protect the
I'm a very important
integrity
lawyer. I've got
of the election.
all these
here in
leather-bound
Georgia.
books and
Republican
rich
officials in
mahogany.
several states released public statements recognizing that President Trump's proposal was unlawful. For instance, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp called the proposal unconstitutional, while Arizona House Speaker Rusty Bowers wrote that the idea would undermine the rule of law.
Cecil,
The pressure campaign
When democracy-
Rusty Bowers sounds like a fishing dog.
thank you.
Yes.
When democracy is held together by the grit of Rusty Bowers.
It sounds like a dog that wears a vest.
For fuck's sake.
100%.
It sounds like a fucking
Rusty Bowsers? Come on now.
It does.
Yeah.
It sounds like a fucking Pixar character.
Absolutely.
Rusty.
Rusty Bowsers.
Well, if it weren't for Rusty and his old friend Mater.
Rusty.
Holy shit.
And his tackle box on his chest.
to get state legislators to go along with the scheme intensified
not a name.
when President Trump invited delegations from Michigan and Pennsylvania.
What happened to the
White
other
House.
lady?
Either you or Speaker Chatfield, did you make the point to the president that you were not going to do anything that violated Michigan law?
I believe we did.
What?
Whether or not
Should you have to bother doing that?
I think
Cecil, when I came,
Did you believe you did it? Or did you do it?
Follow the law.
when I
Nevertheless,
came to the
the pressure
studio,
continued.
I didn't have to
The
say,
next
hey, by
day,
the way, I'm not going to
President
violate any
Trump
laws
said,
today.
quote, "Hopefully
It's just
the
fucking
courts
assumed."
and or legislatures will have the courage to do what has to be done to maintain the integrity of our elections and the United States of America itself. The world is watching." He posted multiple messages on Facebook listing the contact information for state officials and urging his supporters to contact them to, quote, demand a vote on decertification. In one of those posts, President Trump disclosed Mike Shirkey's personal phone number to his millions of followers.
God damn.
All I remember is receiving over just shy of 4,000 text messages over a short period of time.
600 dick pics.
Take action.
I couldn't even send out my own dick pics.
It'd be awesome if he
Loud
replies all
noise.
with a dick pic.
Lot of consistent themes. And, you know, we hear that the Trump folks are calling and asking for changes in the electors and you guys can do this. Well, you know, they were believing things that were untrue.
Do you think they would have done it if they could have done it? I think these guys knew. I don't want to talk this whole time. We got to listen to this thing. I'm sorry, but like he's saying, like it's talking about whether they could have done it. But like, also, you just shouldn't do it.
And also, you can't do it because the court's already ruled, and there's already courts in place that'll say, no, you can't do that. Right? And they would have just like, they might have procedurally been able to do something for like a day.
Right. But even if they had the ability to do it, it would just fly in the face of what a representative democracy is just. It's ideologically built to do.
It's what we talked about all last week when they're talking about the Pence thing, where you and I were just like, yeah, duh, of course he doesn't have the fucking power to do that. That's stupid.
Right.
Why would he have the power to do that? It's the same thing.
It's the same thing
here. It doesn't
here.
dribble downhill. Like, it's votes that get you in the fucking presidency. It's not a fucking dude from Michigan who gets you in the presidency.
If it's anything other than that,
if it's
then we
I know
don't
a
have a
guy,
democracy
then
anymore.
anybody who knows a guy can get it. It's just stupid.
Hey, let me call my
know
pal,
fucking
huh?
guy. Oh, get that guy.
I got a cousin over there.
Hey, forget about it.
Hi, Representative. My name is Angela McCallum. I'm
Hard
calling
sell.
from Trump campaign headquarters in Washington, D.C. You do have the power to reclaim your authority and send a slate of electors that will support President Trump and Vice President Pence.
From President Trump's lawyers
Reclaim your
and
authority.
from Trump
Send new
himself.
electors. Yikes.
And I've become friendly with legislators that I didn't know 4 weeks ago.
Another legislator,
Friendly.
Pennsylvania House Speaker
I
Brian
didn't give a
Butler,
shit till they could do
received
something for me.
daily
Now we're
voicemails from
friends.
lawyers in the last
That's
week of
how it
November.
works. I'm a good guy. Make me your leader.
Rudy Giuliani
You know.
and Jenna Ellis, we're calling you together because we'd like to discuss, obviously, the election.
I have some black stuff leaking down my face.
Hello, Mr. Speaker. This is Jenna Ellis, and I'm here with Mayor Giuliani.
Hey, Brian, it's Rudy.
I like this. That's our
I really
Ian
have
and
something
Sarah.
important to call your attention. I think really changed.
They're going to call everybody on our
Cutler's
Patreon line.
outreach is inappropriate and asked employers to tell Rudy Giuliani to stop calling. But Giuliani continued to reach out.
Please.
I understand
Enough.
that you don't want to talk to me now.
I've been trying to reach you about your car's extended
back to your
warranty.
attention and talk to you as a fellow Republican.
On December 30th, Trump ally Steve Bannon announced a protest.
Put me
at
on your
Cutler's
no-call
home.
list,
We're
Rudy.
getting on the road
Block.
and we're going down to Cutler. We're going to start going
Block.
to offices, and if we have to, we're going to go to homes, and we're going to let them know what we think
How are
about
you
them.
alive? He looks dead. He doesn't look like he's dying. Steve Bannon looks
seriously-
fucking actually dead.
Seriously, looks like one of the horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yes.
Like he looks like a person who like didn't have skin, but then hurriedly found some.
Yes,
like that's what he looks
that's
like.
it.
Yeah.
Like he found some
Yeah,
graveyard
it's just like-
skins.
He's just like, yeah, I kind of borrowed this from someone.
Holy
earlier.
shit!
Yeah.
Nobody looks that unhealthy. Nobody. I did a closing once for a man who died the day after I did the closing. I'm not even shitting.
And
you.
he was more healthy than this.
He didn't look as bad as Steve Bannon.
Better, yeah.
There was at least 3, I think, outside either my district office or my home. And you're correct. My son, my then 15-year-old son, was home by himself for the first one. All of my personal information was doxed online. It was
Nice
my
color balance on the
personal
bottom.
email, my personal cell phone, my home phone number. In fact, we had to disconnect our home phone for
He
about
looks
3
like he's
days
being
because it would
shot
ring all hours
exclusively
of the
from one of
night
those
and
old-timey
would fill up
photos
with
that took
messages.
bad pictures of food.
Clerks facing felony charges in Michigan. Poll watchers denied access in Pennsylvania.
These ads were another element in the effort. The Trump
Look at this
campaign
shit,
spent
though.
millions of
I know.
dollars running ads
know.
online and on television.
It's all bullshit.
Is overwhelming.
Evidence does not
Call your
exist.
governor and legislators. Demand they inspect the machines and hear the evidence.
Public
All
pressure
for
on state
one
officials
guy.
often
I know.
proved dangerous in the lead
This is
up
what
to
happens with
January 6th.
limitless money. Limitless money and ego, man.
We got a super chat, and this is from Sarah. She says, Bannon looks like Giuliani's liver.
We'll light the whole shit on fire.
What are we going to do? What can you and
This
I do
fucking
to stay
guy.
That is the worst guy.
Although we should not do that.
This
I'm
guy
not
has a
advising
real
that,
problem
but
with saying
what else
things,
can you
the
do?
quiet part out loud.
God, he's the worst. I can't wait till he's in prison for something.
Is death.
You should have to run a mile if you want an AK-47.
The state pressure campaign and the danger it posed
Thank you,
to state
yeehaw.
officials and the state capitals around the nation was a dangerous precursor to the violence we saw on January 6th at the U.S. Capitol. Today you will hear from Rusty Bowers, the Republican Speaker of the
I can't
Arizona
take you
House of
seriously,
Representatives.
Rusty.
He will tell us about his conversations with the president, with Rudy Giuliani.
It's an
and
old
John
dog,
Eastman,
too, with like fatty
and what the
tumors and
president's
shit.
team asked
He's
of
got
him,
fatty tumors.
and how his oath of office would not permit it. You will then hear from Brad Raffensperger, the Republican Secretary of State of Georgia, who Trump directed to, quote, find
sounds like a football name.
11,780 votes.
11,780.
That's exactly what I'm like.
Just the
Just
exact
if you got
number
them
of
like in
votes
your
needed
couch
to
cushions.
overtake Joe Biden.
Have you checked for like any
also
spare
hear from
votes in your
Gabriel
couch
Sterling,
cushions?
The chief operating
Just
officer.
print out one
his chief
CVS
operating
receipt with
officer,
11,780.
the spurious
There'd
claims
be
of
room
fraud
for
in
it.
the elections in Georgia, and who, responding to a cascading set of threats to his elections team, warned the president to stop, that someone was going to get killed.
Yep.
And you will hear from Wandrea Shea Moss, a former local elections worker
I didn't
in
use a
Fulton
lot of her
County,
stuff, but her
Georgia,
shit sucks.
about how
Oh, yeah?
all the
So
lies
bad.
about the election
The shit they did to
impacted
that
the
woman.
lives of real people who
I thought you
administer
meant like her
our
testimony
elections.
sucks.
Oh, her testimony's
still
good. It's
do.
just,
Okay.
it's just, it's
You will
very
hear what they
personal, so I
experienced when
cut
the most
some of
powerful
it.
man in the world, the President of the United States, sought to cling to power after being voted out of office by the American people.
Yep.
The system held, but barely. And the system held because people of courage, Republicans and Democrats, like the witnesses you will hear today, put their oath to the country and Constitution above
I read
any
a bunch
other
of stuff about how
consideration.
the Republicans are like,
They
fuck,
did
we
their
should have
jobs,
not
as we
Yeah,
know.
that
declined to
guy-
be on
that
this
guy-
committee.
Yeah, said
So Mr. Giuliani was
he said like
McCarthy,
specifically McCarthy said like he declined to put people on, and we talked about this last week, but everybody is talking about how this isn't a contentious hearing.
Yeah.
And it could have been a very contentious hearing. We talked about this last week, how it's very different from most of the other hearings that you hear where there's one side presenting a case. And Jim Jordan could have been one of the people
I know.
Here.
Yep.
It could have been Jim Jordan saying, whoa, you know, whoa, and fighting the whole time.
Yep.
But instead, when they hand it over to Liz Cheney, she's like, yeah, I'm going to say something worse than the Democrat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like this is a unique hearing. We've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
And McCarthy's fucking kicking himself because what they've got is an uninterrupted opportunity to provide a narrative in straight, uninterrupted A to B to C to D format.
I wonder if he knew Trump was going to get sunk and he might have just said,
Fuck
if
it.
I step out of it and boycott it,
then
now
I
I
look,
look like the guy who's boycotting it because it's bullshit. But what's really happening is they're just going to get rid of Trump forever. And now I don't ever have to bow down to this guy.
You know
again.
what? That's entirely possible because if you, that's entirely possible. That is entirely possible.
Where they're just like, no, I'm boycotting it. But what they're really doing is throwing him under the bus.
They're throwing him completely under the bus.
Yeah.
They're letting his wheels crush
Him-
him, and none of these guys
him and Giuliani
have any,
and Eastman and you know,
this
and it's
Ellis
funny
lady.
too because as you hear people testify, you recognize, especially today when they talk to the AG, you recognize, you can see it, and you think, yeah, man, like there's a lot of people who sat down and listened to stuff, and then you think they just decided, no, I'm not going to be part of this, and they went, but they could have easily been part of this,
Sure,
you know, because they were all in that inner circle.
Yep.
Claiming in the call that there were hundreds of thousands of undocumented people and thousands of dead people who had purportedly voted in the election?
Yes.
And you asked him for evidence.
This is Rusty Bowers. This is a guy from Arizona. The president called him on the phone and then asked him a bunch of questions, basically asking him to call a special session to reject the electors.
Right.
So that's essentially what this is all about. I caught a little bit of this. It was the introduction to him, but this is him being questioned by Schiff right now.
Evidence of that.
I did.
And did you ever receive from him that evidence either during the call, after the call, or to this day?
Never.
What was the ask during this call? He was making these allegations of fraud, but he had something or a couple things that they wanted you to do. What were those?
The ones I remember were first that we would hold, that I would allow an official committee at the Capitol so that they could hear this evidence and that we could take action thereafter. And I refused.
And what was his second ask?
I said, to what end? To what end the hearing? He said, well, we have heard by an official high up in the Republican legislature that there is a legal theory or a legal ability in Arizona that you can remove the
I know a guy.
Right.
Yeah.
the electors of President Biden and replace them.
Yeah, that's
And
a
we would,
legal theory.
We would like
sure.
to have the legitimate opportunity.
Yeah, legally,
through
we
the
don't
committee
believe that's accurate.
to come to that
The
end.
theory.
And
Theoretically, my
remove
ass is a
that.
black
And I
hole.
said,
too.
that's something that's totally new to me. I've never heard of any such thing. And he pressed that point, and I said, look, you are asking me to do something that is counter to my oath when I swore to the Constitution to uphold it, and I also swore to the Constitution and the laws of the state of Arizona, and this is totally foreign as an idea or a theory to me, and I would never do anything of such magnitude without deep consultation with qualified attorneys. And I said, I've got some good attorneys, and I'm going to give you their names. But you are asking me to do something against my oath, and I will not break my oath. And I think that was up to that point.
During the conversation, and you heard, I think, when we played a snippet of Mr. Giuliani calling other state legislators and saying that he was calling us essentially a fellow Republican, did he make a similar appeal to you or bring up the fact that you shared a similar party?
Whether it was in that call or in a later meeting, he did bring that up more than once.
And how would he bring that up?
He would say, aren't we all Republicans here? I would think we would
How
get
does
a
that
better
get you?
reception. I mean, I would think you would listen a little
Yeah,
more
will you break the
open
law?
to my suggestions. That
I mean, we're all Republicans. We do it all the time.
Yeah.
So as far as I was concerned, for someone to ask me in the, I would call it a paucity, there was no evidence being presented of any strength. Evidence can be hearsay evidence. It's still evidence, but it's still hearsay. But strong judicial quality evidence, anything that would say to me, you have a doubt, deny your oath. I will not do that. And on more than
He broke. He froze.
on more than one occasion throughout all this,
somebody put a
that has
quarterback
been
in him.
brought up, and it is a tenet of my faith
Okay.
that
Yeah.
the Constitution
there we
is
go.
divinely inspired,
It's not. That's stupid.
of my most basic foundational beliefs.
That is a
And
genuinely
so
stupid.
for me to do that because somebody just asked me to is foreign to my very being. I will not do it.
You shouldn't fucking do it because fucking other people will be affected by it. You're
Right.
essentially saying the rules don't matter anymore and whoever is in charge gets to pick whoever they want.
Right.
That's what you're saying. And that's a terrible fucking system. And it's literally why we fucking left England.
Yeah,
You know?
that's you have abandoned the entire idea of a democracy. It's then what you have is a North Korean show election.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? It's 103% for
all
Trump.
It's all for Trump. The other thing too is like you should fucking care about me, not your fucking bullshit sky daddy. I won't do it because I fucking make somebody up. You should be caring about, that proves you're not a humanist, right? Like you don't give a fuck about other people. You care about more about your fucking guy. I heard that line. It just irked me, man. I was like, fuck you. Fucking divinely inspired. My balls are
I know,
divinely
man.
inspired. Go fuck yourself.
I love that these guys that they believe that the Constitution, they really do. A lot of these guys, a very common belief that the Constitution is divine, that God himself was working through these framers of the Constitution. Like, yeah, all right, then why did it need so many amendments?
Right.
Why did it include votes for women for, 100 plus years? Why didn't it include votes for black people for 100 plus years? Why didn't it include 1,000 things that are just self-evidently good ideas? This is genuinely stupid idea because it's a genuinely imperfect document. And I just wish these guys would recognize that it's good to the point of being great, but great is not perfect,
Yeah.
and that there's plenty of wiggle room and plenty of error. And we will certainly find out as our ideas and our ethics and our understanding of the world change and evolve, that we need to change and evolve with it. But this whole like conservative ideology literally definitionally cannot handle that idea.
Yeah.
They can't. It fucking blows their shit. So they have to be like, oh no, God did it. And you're like, cool.
Great.
We're done talking
He
now.
had an infinite number of angels typing.
Yes,
and they all
that
came
is
up
what they
with it.
came up
Yeah.
with.
You know, I read a comment this week that I really thought was interesting. They said, if the founding fathers today woke up and saw that we were still using the exact same document and we can communicate instantaneously coast to coast, they'd be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Right.
You know, they'd be like, we wrote that, but we didn't think it was going to still be used when technology and thought and progressive, and we've progressed way past the chance, like our usefulness. You know what I mean? I that whole originalism bullshit is dumb.
Just stop.
But also this fucking divinely inspired stuff, you a fucking dick. Got a second in here, 5 seconds.
And Mr. Secretary, as I understand it,
Okay,
your
this
office
is,
took-
I edited out the rest of that guy's testimony. Essentially, you heard everything. He tried to get him to do it, and he wouldn't do it. He tried to pressure him to do it. There was at some point, too, the QAnon shaman did go down there with a group and was inside the group. Yeah, so I cut that part out because he doesn't do anything. He just shows up at the legislature.
Is he dressed all shamanistically?
100% dressed shamanistically.
That's
so
amazing.
He's in his bull head or his bison head or whatever, and he's there. So he did show up, but I cut all that stuff out of there because it's really just him saying, yeah, we were pressured by people, by outside forces, by inside forces. We were pressured by a whole bunch of different groups, and we were pressured by the president, but we didn't fold. And so
Right.
that's the main idea.
several steps to
This is
ensure the
Georgia now.
accuracy of the vote count in Georgia, reviewing the vote count in at least 3 different ways. These steps included a machine recount, a forensic audit, and a full hand recount of every one of the 5 million ballots cast. Did these efforts, including a recount of literally every ballot cast in the state of Georgia, confirm the result?
Yes, they did. We counted the ballots where the first tabulation would be scanned. Then when we did our 100% hand audit of the all 5 million ballots in the state of Georgia, all cast in place, all absentee ballots, they were all hand recounted and they came remarkably close to the first count. And then upon the election being certified, President Trump, because he was within 0.5%, could ask for a recount. And then we recounted them again through the scanners and we got remarkably the same count. 3 counts, all remarkably close, which showed that President Trump did come up short.
Nevertheless,
I want to point out, too, everybody that they interviewed today voted for Trump. So
Right.
every single person here specifically went out of their way to, they were the one, it was in their best interest, right? They wanted this result. They were motivated by this result, but every single one of these people is a Republican that voted for
I don't remember who it is, but I read a quote that one of these fucking guys, at least one of them, said they would vote for Trump again. That in 2024, if he runs again, they'll vote for him again. But they're just like, but he still have to follow the fucking basic.
Still got to follow the rules.
The basic rules.
Come on, man. These are so simple. And the fact that he's pressuring so many people to break all these, and then the other people that get a chance to pressure those people, it was a fucking mess, man.
And then you look at this, and I don't want to like relitigate the past too much, but you look at all of this pressure campaign, and then you look back at what he was impeached for the first time, which was pressuring Zelensky in his call with Zelensky to say, hey, dig up some dirt on Hunter Biden. And he's like, no, it was a perfectly fine call. Bullshit it was. The guy, this is his MO.
This is what he does.
And like, none of this is surprising. This was his MO as a business person in New York. Ask anybody from New York.
Yeah.
This is classic.
This is him.
This
is him.
This is just him.
Yeah.
As you will see, the president and his allies began making numerous false allegations of voter fraud. False allegations that you and Mr. Sterling, among others, had to address. Mr. Sterling, thank you also for being here today. Following the 2020 election, in addition to your normal duties, I understand that you became a spokesperson to try to combat disinformation about the election and the danger it was creating for elections officials, among others. In a December 1 press conference, you addressed some of your remarks directly
every day
to
was
President
out there
Trump. Let's
giving
take a
press
look at what you
conferences.
said that day.
Mr. President, it looks like you likely lost the state of Georgia. We're investigating. There's always a possibility. I get it. And you have the rights to go through the courts. What you don't have the ability to do, and you need to step up and say this, is stop inspiring people to commit potential acts of violence. Someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get shot. Someone's going to get killed. And it's not right. It's not right.
Mr. Sterling, what prompted you to make these remarks?
I did pull up Twitter, and I scrolled through it, and I saw the young man's name. There was a particular tweet that, for lack of a better word, was a straw that broke the camel's back.
It's a phrase, not a word.
Had the young man's name. It was a very unique name. I believe it was a first-generation American. And it said, had his name, "You committed treason. May God have mercy on your soul," with a slowly twisting gif of a noose.
It's a GIF.
And for lack of a better word, I lost it.
Now, after you made this plea to the president, did Donald Trump urge his supporters to avoid the use
Ian,
of
is it a
violence?
GIF or a GIF?
Not to my knowledge.
Now, as we know, the president was aware of your speech because he tweeted about it later that day. Let's take a look at what the president said.
Oh, you can't
In the
anymore.
tweet,
'Cause it's been removed.
Donald Trump claims that there was, quote, massive voter fraud in Georgia. Mr. Sterling, that was just plain false, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Nevertheless, the very next day, on December 2nd, President Trump released a lengthy video again making false claims of election fraud in Georgia. Let's take a look at what he said this time.
They found thousands and thousands of votes that were out of whack, all against me.
Out of whack. Out of
In
whack.
fact, the day after
They
Donald
weren't
Trump
even
released
in
that
whack.
video,
That's
so now we're
amazing.
talking just 2 days after the emotional warning.
They were wiggity
that
whack.
you gave that someone's going to get killed. Representatives of President Trump appeared in Georgia, including Rudy Giuliani, and launched a new conspiracy theory that would take on a
They were
life
looking
of
for a
its
soul
own
to steal.
and threaten the lives of several innocent
they could
election workers.
Dye his
This
hair
story
black with
falsely
their soul.
alleges that sometime during election night, election workers at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia, kicked out poll observers. After the observers left, the story goes, these workers pulled so-called suitcases of ballots from under a table and ran those ballots through counting machines multiple times.
I left this in. I left his explanation in because this is essentially the biggest conspiracy theory that they had. That they closed down, evidently they closed down this place in Georgia because there was supposedly a water main leak, and then they wound up pulling ballots out and running.
Yeah, I
them out.
remember
That was,
this
so this
nonsense. Yeah.
so he explains the whole thing.
Completely without evidence, President Trump and his allies claimed that these suitcases contained as many as 18,000 ballots, all for Joe Biden. None of this was true. But Rudy Giuliani appeared before the Georgia State Senate and played a surveillance video from State Farm Arena, falsely claiming that it showed this conspiracy taking place. Here's a sample of what Mr. Giuliani had to say during that hearing.
And when you look at what you saw on the video, which to me was a smoking gun, powerful smoking gun, well, I don't have to be a genius to figure out what happened. And I don't have to be a genius to figure out that those votes are not legitimate votes.
Yeah.
You don't put legitimate votes under a table.
No.
Wait until you throw the opposition out, and in the middle of the night,
All I can do
count
is
them.
look at the size of the man's
We would have to be
fucking
fools
head
to
and
think
neck
that.
in the bottom left corner.
Wow, I missed it.
President
Look at
Trump's
the
campaign
size of it.
amplified Giuliani's false testimony in a tweet, pushing out the video footage. Giuliani likewise pushed out his testimony on social media. As you can see in this tweet, Mr. Giuliani wrote that it was, quote, now beyond doubt, unquote, that Fulton County Democrats had stolen the election.
What it actually showed was Fulton County election workers engaging in normal ballot processing. One of the things that was very frustrating was the so-called suitcases of ballots from under the table. If you watch the entirety of the video, you saw that these were election workers who were under the impression they were going to get to go home around 10:30. People are putting on their coats. They're putting ballots that are prepared to be scanned into ballot carriers that are then sealed with tamper-proof seals so that they're not messed with. It's an interesting thing because you watch there's 4 screens of the video, and as you're watching it, you can see the election monitors in the corner with the press as they're taking these ballot carriers and putting them under the table. You see it there. One of the other hidden ones, if you looked at the actual tape, was on the outside of the table, just from the camera angle. You couldn't see it originally. And this goes under the no good deed goes unpunished. We were told, we were at GEMA, as the secretary pointed out, and we were told that it looked like they were shutting down the Fulton County counting. The secretary expressed some displeasure at that because we wanted to everybody keep counting so we could get to the results and know what was happening. So our elections director called their elections director, who was at another location because this was election day. There was 2 different places where ballot things were being done by the Fulton County office. So he called the elections director of Fulton, then called Ralph Jones, who was at the State Farm Arena, and said, "What the heck are you doing? Go ahead and stay." And as you watch the video itself, you see him take the phone call as people are putting things away and getting ready to leave. And you can tell for about 15, 20 seconds, he does not want to tell these people they have to stay. He walks over, he thinks about it for a second, you see him come back to the corner of a desk and kind of slumps his shoulders and says, "Okay, y'all, we got to keep on counting." And then you see him take their coats off, get the ballots out. And then a secondary thing that you'll see on there is you'll have people who are counting ballots who a batch will go through, they will take them off and run that through again. What happens there is a standard operating procedure. If there is a misscan, if there's a misalignment, if it doesn't read right, these are high-speed, high-capacity scanners. So 3 or 4 will go through after a misscan. You have to delete that batch and put it back through again. And by going through the hand tally, as the secretary pointed out, we showed that if there had been multiple ballots scanned without a corresponding physical ballot, your counts would have been a lot higher than the ballots themselves. And by doing the hand tally, we saw 2 specific numbers that were met. The hand tally got us to a 0.1053% off of the total votes cast and 0.0099% on the margin, which is essentially dead on accurate. Most academic studies say on a hand tally you'll have between 1% and 2%, but because we use ballot marking devices where it's very clear what the voter intended, it made it a lot easier for us to conduct that hand count and show that none of that was true.
It's just, you have the most important job in the country, right?
So now he's trying to convince people with phone calls. So there's 2 phone calls. This phone call to an election person who's down there, and then the other phone call that we heard. So this one we didn't hear before.
Well, yeah, but
so this is a new one.
Yeah, because if we win Georgia, first of all, if we win, you're going to have 2 wins. So they're not going to win right now. They're down because the people of Georgia are so angry at what happened to me. They know I won by hundreds of thousands of votes. It wasn't close.
And in this next clip, he told this state law enforcement official that she'd be praised if she found the right answer.
Hopefully, I will. When the right answer comes out, you'll be praised. I mean, I don't know why. They've made it so hard. They will be praised. People will say, "Great," because that's what it's about. That ability to check.
Shit, if people are going to say great, I guess I will break the law.
There's just no way.
Mr. Raffensperger, I know you weren't on this call, but that you have listened to it. President Trump didn't win by hundreds of thousands of votes in Georgia, did he?
No, he did not. I've been traveling through the state of Georgia for a year now, and simply put, in a nutshell, what happened in fall of 2020 is that 28,000 Georgians skipped the presidential race, and yet they voted down ballot in other races.
Yep.
And the Republican congressman ended up getting 33,000 more votes than President Trump. And that's why President Trump came up short.
Thank
Run
you,
a
Mr.
better
Secretary.
campaign.
The President on this call doesn't stop here. Let's listen to another part of the conversation between President Trump and Ms. Watson.
Anyway, but whatever you can do, Francis, it would be, it's a great thing. It's an important thing for the country. So important. You have no idea it's so important. Well, and I very much appreciate it.
Whatever you can do, Francis. This is the President of the United States calling an investigator looking into the election in which he is a candidate and asking her to do whatever you can do. Listen to this portion when he told Francis Watson about a very important
blatant, so sleazy and gross.
Do you think they'll be working after Christmas and keep it going fast? Because, we have that date of the 6th, which is a very important date.
Huh.
Let's begin with the president raising the thoroughly debunked allegations of suitcases of ballots.
in an official voter box. They were in.
This is
what
the
looked
other
be,
call to Rafflesburger or whatever.
Raffensperger?
Trunks, suitcases, but they weren't in voter boxes. The minimum number it could be, because we watched it and they watched it certified in slow motion, instant replay, if you can believe it, but it had slow motion and it was magnified many times over.
Get the fuck out of here! You watch too much CSI. You think you could like fucking?
That's amazing.
Enhance.
It's so amazing. The president just looks at him and is like, just tell me how many ballots. And the guy's like, 18,000. He's like, you could tell that just by zooming in. You bet, Mr. President.
The thing is, you got to go me like 3 times. You got to
control plus.
All for Biden.
These are the allegations that the Department of Justice, the Attorney General, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation,
How much
and your
money did we
office heads
waste on
all
this?
said were false. Is that right?
Correct. And even more importantly, when B.J. Pack resigned as U.S. Attorney of the Northern District, President Trump appointed as acting U.S. Attorney of the Northern District Bobby Christine. And Bobby Christine looked at that, and he was quoted in the AJC that he found nothing. And he dismissed that case early also.
And finally, the president claims that there was a minimum of 18,000 ballots somehow smuggled in, all for Biden. I take it, gentlemen, that was also categorically false?
You know, they don't ever name like who the fucking actors are that do this.
Secondarily,
they name like the result,
Fulton County for
but they
years
never
has been
have
an
like
issue in
any
our
of the
state when it
people
comes to
that can do
elections.
this.
So
Right.
There was a minimum of 18,000 ballots somehow smuggled in, all
like
for
his
Biden.
answer.
I take it, gentlemen, that was also categorically false?
There's no physical way he can know who those ballots were for, but secondarily, Fulton County for years has been an issue in our state when it comes to elections. So they had a very difficult time during the primary, in large part because of COVID. So we had put them under a consent decree the secretary got negotiated, where we had a monitor on site. And his name is Carter Jones, and he took a notation. He had gone from State Farm to the English Street warehouse to look at election day activities, but before he left the State Farm arena, he noted how many ballots had been counted on each one of the machines. And when he came back after we found out they were working again, he took note again when they closed. And I believe the final number was something around 8,900 total ballots were scanned from the time he left to the time about 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning. So way below 18,000.
Let's play the next.
That's so great. It's wrong on 2 levels.
It's wrong.
I heard
Both
it
of
was
which are very
close.
important.
I said, there's no way. But they dropped a lot of votes in there late at night. You know that, Brett.
Mr. Secretary, did somebody drop a lot of votes there late at night?
He wants to laugh.
I love it.
I believe that the president was referring to some of the counties when they would upload, but the ballots had all been accepted and had to be accepted by state law by 7 p.m. So there were no additional ballots accepted after 7 p.m.
It just takes time
The
to
next
count
clip in
things.
which the president makes claims about so-called dead voters.
The other thing, dead people. So dead people voted. And I think the number is in the close to 5,000 people. And they went to obituaries. They went to all sorts of methods to come up with an accurate number. And a minimum is close to about 5,000 voters.
Mr. Secretary, did your office investigate whether those allegations were accurate? Did 5,000 dead people in Georgia vote?
No, it's not accurate. Actually, in their lawsuits, they allege 10,315 dead people. We found
10,000, 5,000, whatever. When you're making shit up, you can't keep it straight.
And subsequent to that, we found 2 more. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 people, not 4,000, but just a total of 4, not 10,000, not 5,000.
Ian, what's 4
the next clip.
out of 5 million percentage-wise?
And there's nothing wrong with saying that.
Not
you know,
much.
Okay, thank you. Basically
that
zero?
you
Just want to
recalculate
double check.
because,
0?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty close.
Good, yeah.
2,236 and absentee ballots. I mean, they're all exact numbers that were done by accounting firms, law firms, etc. And even if you cut them in half, and cut them in half again, it's more votes than we need.
Mr. Secretary, is there any way that you could have lawfully changed the result in the state of Georgia and somehow explained it away as a recalculation?
No, the numbers are the numbers. The numbers don't lie. We had many allegations, and we investigated every single one of them. In fact, I challenged my team, did we miss anything? They said that there was over 66,000 underage voters. We found that there's actually zero. You can register to vote in Georgia. When you're 17 and a half, you have to be 18 by election day. We checked that out, every single voter. They said that there was 2,423 non-registered voters. There was zero.
All right, what'd I miss?
The dead people voting.
Oh, yeah, this is great.
That's not a thing.
No.
Not a thing.
Turns out that's
not
not
a
a thing.
possibility.
Yeah.
I did ask Ian to do some math for me and check what 5,000 out of 5 or 4 was the total number of dead people that they found. 4.
That's amazing.
4.
And you know what's funny is
I wanted to check what that is out of 5
from what I
million.
remember, like they were all Trump voters too. Which
Right,
is
yeah.
funny,
All the
'cause
fraud
they
they've
don't
caught is
mention-
right-wing fraud.
They don't mention the fraud, who the people from fraud
Right.
voted.
It's just fraud.
Yeah.
But all of it that I've heard, like we've covered it every time it's come up.
It's minuscule.
Like
it's just like
and it's
happens at every election,
right.
and there's a few. You know.
Because we talked about this. The system is pretty good to make sure it doesn't happen. And the stakes for you doing it personally are way too high versus your ability to actually accomplish anything meaningful by doing it as one person.
Right. Sorry, I had to run away there real quick. My cat's in the emergency room, and I got a call from the vet. So I was like,
yeah, I know.
But it turns out that they just needed some paperwork done or something like that over the phone. That CPR thing, like I guess you got to
Like
sign a thing or something. And when Sarah brought the cat in, she didn't sign it.
Okay.
And so when I saw the number of like 100
Yeah, you gotta
number,
get
I was
it.
like, oh, it's and so I was immediately, that's why I took the call and I ran off. So I'm sorry about the cat's in the ER tonight. So I'm a little jumpy. I apologize.
He said that there was 2,056 felons. We identified less than 74 or less that were actually still in felony sentence. Every single allegation we checked, we ran down the rabbit trail to make sure that our numbers were accurate.
President, they did not put that. We did an audit of that, and we proved conclusively that they were not scanned 3 times. Yeah, Mr. President, we'll send you the link from WSB that does.
I don't care about a link. I don't need it. I have Brad, I have a much better link.
I have a whole internet, Brad.
I have the best links.
I have the best internet.
We have all the best links.
It's amazing.
You know what? I'm a golfer. We got great links.
You told the president you would send him a link from WSB, which I understand is a local television station that had a unedited video from the State Farm Arena. But the president wasn't interested in that. He said he had a much better link. Mr. Secretary,
What the fuck does that?
What does that even
you
mean?
were
I
on
got the
call
best
with
links.
President, as we have shown, both the FBI and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation have proven these claims to be nonsense. And you told him about these investigations on the phone. Let's listen to what President Trump had to say about the state and federal law enforcement officers who investigated these false claims.
There's no way they could. Then they're incompetent. They're either dishonest or
find?
incompetent. Okay, there's only 2 answers: dishonesty or incompetence. There's just no way. Look, there's no way.
I don't
Here's
like
the
that
president
answer. That is
retweeting
my
a post
answer.
from one of his allies.
My answer is
a lawyer who was
your
later
answer
sanctioned
sucks.
by a judge in Michigan for making
Oh my
false
God!
claims
Look at this!
of election
Look at
fraud.
That's fucking amazing.
Let's take a look.
Those 2
at that
answers,
tweet.
though, are literally his whole presidency.
Yeah,
The tweet
right.
read, quote, President Trump, at real Donald Trump, is a genuinely good man. He does not really like to fire people. I bet he dislikes putting people in jail, especially, quote unquote,
They
Republicans.
had to tag in a new
He gave
sign
at Brian
language.
Kemp,
Right.
Georgia, and
Yeah,
at Georgia
they
Secretary of
did.
State every chance to get
It's
it
the
right.
third one.
They refused.
They had a lady, then they had
assumed
that gentleman with the
going
goatee, and now they got
to
this
jail.
guy with the
So
different
on your
goatee.
call, this was not the first time the president was suggesting you might be criminally liable. With that, let's listen to this portion of the call.
I think you're going to find that they are shredding ballots because they have to get rid of the ballots because the ballots are unsigned. The ballots are corrupt. And they're brand new and they don't have seals. And there's a whole thing with the ballots, but the ballots are corrupt. And you're going to find that they are, which is totally illegal. It's more illegal for you than it is for them because you know what they did and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal offense. And you can't let that happen. That's a big risk to you and to Ryan, your lawyer. That's a big risk.
The lawyer. In case you don't know who Ryan is, that's your lawyer.
After making a false claim about shredding ballots,
How
the
are
president
people
suggested
into this guy?
You may be committing a crime by not going along with his claims of election fraud. And after suggesting that you might have criminal exposure, President Trump makes his most explicit ask of the call. Let's play a part of that conversation.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780.
How is this out loud and he's not in jail? For real.
Which is one more.
Because we won the state. Why wouldn't you want to find the right answer, Brad, instead of keep saying that the numbers are right? So look, can you get together tomorrow? And Brad, we just want the truth. It's simple. And everyone's going to look very good if the truth comes out. It's okay. It takes a little while, but let the truth come out. And the real truth is I won by 400,000 votes.
Shut the
at least.
fuck up.
Fucking get out of here
So
with
what
that
are we gonna do here,
nonsense.
folks? I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break.
Holy shit. This
Do
has
you
worked
remember-
for him his whole
Do you
life.
remember that call?
Oh,
though, when
yeah.
we listened to that call. We listened to the whole
I remember
fucking
calling
call.
you.
We listened to the
Yep.
whole fucking call. And the whole time
Yep.
Tom and I are just like, this is such fucking coercion. And I can't believe he's not in jail for this.
I know.
cannot believe
I
he's
know.
not in jail for this.
I know. This is like, but this is a guy who's used to just berating people as a negotiator. You can
it's
hear
his tactic.
You can hear how this is a business negotiation tactic, right?
just, come
You s-
on.
You start off.
Yeah.
This is like classic shit. You start off asking for all this stuff, then you start winnowing it until you get to the real thing that you're trying to get. Right, so it's at first it's like, oh look, we got this, we got that, and they shut that down, they shoot that down, they shoot that down. You don't really care the whole time. You don't really care because what you're really looking for is
big ask.
11,780 votes.
Yes.
So you're asking for the moon, and what you really get is a moon rover. But the whole time, all you needed was the moon rover.
Yeah.
That's the whole goal going in.
right.
And you're watching him do it, and it's this berating, and it's this, and he like crosses between berating and praising. Like it's all like this is a classic shit. It's fucking obvious car salesman
Anybody.
shit.
Yeah, it's getting you to buy a roll
Right.
off the fucking shop with fucking undercoating.
Right.
Well, after the election,
This is him getting harassed here.
email, my cell phone was doxxed, and so I was getting text all over the country. And then eventually, my wife started getting the text, and hers typically came in as sexualized texts, which were disgusting. You have to understand that Trish and I, we met in high school. We've been married over 40 years now, and so they started going after her. I think just to probably put pressure on me. Why don't you just quit, walk away? And so that happened, and then some
Gross.
people broke into my daughter-in-law's home.
Hear that?
And,
Yeah.
My son has passed, and she's a widow and has 2 kids. And so we're very concerned about her safety also.
Fucking hell.
Fulton County Republican poll watchers were ejected, in some cases physically, from the room under the false pretense of a pipe burst. Water main burst, everybody leave, which we now know was a total lie. Then election officials pulled boxes, Democrats, and suitcases of ballots out from under a table. You all saw it on television.
He knew it was fake. He knew this was a lie.
nonsense.
He knew this was a lie, and he said
Yep.
it to all those people to tune him up the day of. He
This
knew
is-
it was a lie.
You know, I would say like this is a way to create a kind of Mandela effect. Like it was never true, but if you say it and say it and say it,
enough.
people will insist they saw
and
it.
He keeps saying it over and
Yeah.
over and over again.
Totally fraudulent, and illegally scanned them for nearly 2 hours, totally unsupervised. Tens of thousands of votes. This act coincided with a mysterious vote dump of up to 100,000 votes for Joe Biden, almost none for Trump. Oh, that sounds fair. That was at 1:34 a.m.
And that's the problem too, is that all throughout this entire process, they kept on pointing to that and they expect every one of those to be 50-50 because the rest of the race seems so close. So when they would get these big, large dumps, for lack of a better word, of votes that were uploaded at one time, they would be from heavily Biden areas, and people would say, yeah, that's because it's a heavily Biden area.
Right.
That's how voting works.
That's so how voting works. That's actually the entire principle behind districting and redistricting and like
That's
gerrymandering.
yeah, it's like literally your whole party built itself
Right.
off that.
If-
That's the reason
yes.
why you still have power.
Right. If it were not true that geographies vote overwhelmingly one way or another, then gerrymandering and districting wouldn't matter.
Wouldn't matter. But
you would just graph it all
yeah.
out.
And it wouldn't matter. They would always be that sort of
Right.
50-50 bullshit.
Right.
But it's not. It's fucking coming in from different places. And you're coming in with the wrong assumptions, and then you're pig-headedly keep on saying the same thing over and over again, trying to make it true. Still got a little bit of time left. 7 more minutes. Now, okay. So this is now the election worker. This is a woman who is working for Georgia. He's gonna introduce her, so I don't need to do much. I kept her introduction in. So this is the introduction of this election worker from Georgia.
Drea Shea Moss. Ms. Moss worked in the Department of Registration and Elections in Fulton County, Georgia, from 2017 until 2022. In that job, Ms. Moss handled voter applications and absentee ballot requests, and also helped to process the vote count for several elections. In December 2020, Ms. Moss and her mother, Ms. Ruby Freeman, became the target of nasty lies spread by President Trump and his allies as they sought to overturn the election results in Georgia. Ms. Moss and her mother, Ms. Freeman, are two of the unsung heroes in this country, doing the hard work of keeping our democracy functioning for every American.
Tape earlier in the day of Ruby Freeman and Shea Freeman Moss and one other gentleman quite obviously surreptitiously passing around.
How can you obviously surreptitiously do things?
Okay, this is fucking disgusting what he says here. This is fucking disgusting.
Tape earlier in the day of Ruby Freeman and Shea Freeman Moss and one other gentleman quite obviously surreptitiously passing around USB ports as if they're vials of heroin or cocaine. I mean, it's obvious to anyone who's a criminal investigator or prosecutor they are engaged in surreptitious illegal activity again that day. And that's a week ago, and they're still walking around Georgia.
USB drives, he says.
Lying.
Why would you compare USB drives like cocaine?
Should have been questioned already.
Look at his eyes.
There are places of work.
Are these going to be black people?
Yes.
And that's why.
That's why. Yeah, because he's a fucking terrible racist. That's why.
For evidence of voter fraud.
Jesus Christ.
So
God, they telegraph their fucking racism so like evidently.
This is Miss Moss.
That icon, and
so she's talking about how they called her into the office after this fucking thing goes live. So he's given this testimony somewhere. They call her in the office and they said, have you seen what's on Facebook? And now she's talking about going to Facebook. She doesn't go to Facebook very often. And so she doesn't really understand. And then they tell her that she got to go to Messenger to see her messages. So that's what she's doing right now.
it was just a lot of horrible things there.
And those horrible things, did they include threats?
Yes, a lot of threats, wishing death upon me, telling me that, you know, I'll be in jail with my mother, and
that's her mom
saying things
her.
like,
Jesus Christ.
Be glad it's 2020 and not 1920.
That's great. That's great.
In one of the
God
videos
bless
we just
America.
watched, Mr. Giuliani accused you.
Some of these fuckers are trying to make it 1920 again.
Seriously, listen to this though. This is the USB part.
2020 and not 1920.
In one of the videos we just watched, Mr. Giuliani accused you and your mother of passing some sort of USB drive to each other. What was your mom actually handing you on that video?
A ginger mint.
Mom fucking gave her a candy, dude. And Giuliani goes on fucking in blast, puts her on blast. Her real name.
Right.
On blast.
Yep.
As if she fucking stole the election for getting a fucking ginger mint from her mom. What a disgusting piece of shit Giuliani is.
And does it in a way that is explicitly racially charged.
Explicitly racist. Yes.
Holy fuck.
Fuck that guy in the face.
He needs to go to prison.
That fucking guy, for all the shit he pulled in this election, I 100% agree.
He needs to go to 4 seasons total prison. Total correctional facility.
It wasn't just
He's in the yard with shit leaking down his head.
We heard President Trump make these false allegations repeatedly during his call with Secretary Raffensperger. Let's listen to a portion of what he had to say about you and your mother.
We had at least 18,000, that's on tape. We had them counted very painstakingly. 18,000 voters having to do with Ruby Freeman. She's a vote scammer, a professional vote scammer, and hustler.
I would fucking sue his pants off.
Donald Trump attacked you and your mother using her name 18 times on that call.
I hope she does sue.
I hope so too.
I hope she does sue.
Listen, you have to listen to their story, dude, because he ruined their life. He ruined their fucking life, man. Because now everybody hates him.
Oh God.
Ms. Moss, can you describe what you experienced listening to former President Trump attack you and your mother in a call with the Georgia Secretary of State?
I felt horrible. I felt like it was all my fault. Like, if I would have never decided to be an elections worker, like, I could have done anything else, but that's what I decided to do. And now people are lying and spreading rumors and lies and attacking my mom.
I cut her a little bit because it's a long part, but like essentially she's just like, fucking, you ruined my life. Like I can't even go out in fucking public anymore, essentially, because like, people know who she is
by fucking name like
and
that.
now they're just like
professional vote scammer and
times
hustler.
you mentioned in that call, and that call got played everywhere, man. And the full text of that call was available everywhere days after.
Her also told the select committee
this is her mother
about how she had to leave her own home for her safety and go into hiding after the FBI told her that it would not be safe for her there before January 6th and until the inauguration. Let's listen to a clip of her story in her own words.
Around the week of January 6th,
amazing
the FBI informed me that I needed to leave my home
glasses.
for safety. And I left my home for safety around that time.
Understood. How long did you stay out? Did you, remain outside of your home for your own safety?
I stayed away from my home for approximately 2 months. It was
Jesus.
horrible. I felt homeless. I felt, I can't believe this person has caused this much damage to me and my family. To have to leave my home, that I've lived there for 21 years. And, I'm having to have my neighbors watch out for me, and I have to go and stay with somebody. It was hard. It was horrible.
Ms. Moss, I understand that people once showed up at your grandmother's house. Tell us about that experience.
I received a call from my grandmother. This woman is my everything. I've never even heard her or seen her cry ever in my life. And she called me screaming at the top of her lungs, like, Shay, oh my God, Shay, just freaking me out, saying that there were people at her home and they knocked on the door, and of course she opened it and seeing who was there, who it was, and they just started pushing their way through, claiming that they were coming in to make a citizen's arrest. They needed to find me and my mom. They knew we were there.
In addition to the personal impact this experience has had on you and your family, one of the things that I find most disturbing is how these lies discourage longtime election workers from continuing to do this important work. Tell us, if you would, of the other election workers shown in that State Farm Arena video and their supervisors. How many are still election workers in Fulton County?
There is no permanent election worker or supervisor in that video that's still there.
And did you end up leaving your position as well?
Yes, I left.
There is nowhere I feel safe. Nowhere. Do you know how it feels to have the President of the United States to target you? The President of the United States is supposed to represent every American, not to target one. But he targeted me, Lady Ruby, a small business owner, a mother, a proud American citizen who stand up to help Fulton County run an election in the middle of the pandemic.
Fucking A, man.
It's fucking
and he knows it's bullshit.
And he knows it's
bullshit.
bullshit.
He knows it's bullshit.
It's bullshit. And he fucking targeted just a fucking random person.
Yeah.
This is just a person who went to work that day and got a ginger mint from her mom who was there.
And now mom and grandma and her are all eating shit by right-wing fucking freaks.
By those terrible people who only care what Trump thinks.
Yep. Yeah. Even though he literally doesn't think anything valuable.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So that's the first one. I edited it down, like I said. This next one's less edited, but we got to get to it. We don't have a lot of time. We can't jump to chat right now. We're just going to jump right in. This is today's hearing.
I'd like to start with a personal story. So in May of 2009, I returned from service in Iraq and I announced my intention to run for Congress. A big reason I decided to run for Congress was my motivation to ensure freedom and democracy were defended overseas. I remember making a commitment out loud a few times and in my heart repeatedly, even to today, that if we are going to ask Americans to be willing to die in service to our country, we as leaders must at least be willing to sacrifice our political careers when integrity and our oath requires it. After all, losing a job is nothing compared to losing your life.
Right?
Within the halls of power, in the face of a president, that commitment can easily be forgotten. Presidential pressure can be really hard to resist. Today, we'll focus on a few officials who stood firm against President Trump's political pressure campaign. When the president tried to misuse the department and install a loyalist at its helm, these brave officials refused and threatened to resign.
He's all in blue.
They were willing to sacrifice their careers for the good of our country. The Department of Justice is unique in the executive branch. The president oversees the Department of Justice, yet the president's personal or partisan interests must not shape or dictate the department's actions. The president cannot and must not use the department to serve his own personal interest.
Except when the Department of Justice literally defended him in lawsuits.
To do his political bidding,
or when Bill Barr
especially when what he wants them to do is
Yeah.
to subvert democracy. The president cannot pervert justice nor the law to maintain his power. Justice
But he
must,
can pay it $140,000 to
both in
fuck
fact and
it.
law, be blind. That is critical to our whole system of self-governance. During this hearing, you'll hear time and time again about the president's request to investigate claims of widespread fraud. Our witnesses, Mr. Rosen, Mr. Donahue, and Mr. Engel, stood firm in the face of overbearing political pressure because they understood that their oath was to the Constitution and not to the personal or political interests of the president. The president and his allies became keenly aware that with legal challenges exhausted and electoral votes certified, their only hope would be a last-ditch scheme to prevent Congress from certifying the win, thus throwing the entire system into constitutional chaos. The president wanted the department to sow doubt in the legitimacy of the election, to empower his followers and members of Congress to take action. If the department could just lend its credibility to the conspiracies, people would have the justification they needed to spread the big lie. So President Trump ultimately wanted the Department of Justice to say the election was, quote, corrupt and, quote, leave the rest to me and the Republican congressmen.
I remember
As you will hear today, the department's top leadership refused. Not surprisingly, President Trump didn't take no for an answer. He didn't accept it from Attorney General Barr, and he wouldn't accept it from Mr. Rosen either. So he looked for another Attorney General, his third in 2 weeks. He needed to find someone who was willing to ignore the facts. That is not the norm. Let's look at what attorneys general, Democrats and Republicans alike, have said about upholding their oath to the Constitution.
Attorney General ultimately owes his loyalty
to a
the
Keebler
integrity of the American
to
people
EL fudge
and to
cookies.
the fidelity to the Constitution and the legitimate laws of the country.
It kind of looks like Pat Roberts. If he has to
required to do.
testify, 100% read EL fudge.
Yes, Attorney General. I will be the people's lawyer. If, however, there were an issue that I thought were that significant that would compromise my ability to serve
God, that looks it looks like
as Attorney General in the
1910s
way that I
camera.
have described, that as
That-
the people's
it's so
lawyer,
really does.
I would
We're
not
so
hesitate to
old.
resign.
As you and I discussed, if the president proposed to undertake a course of conduct that was in violation of the Constitution, that would present me with a difficult but not a complex problem. I would have two choices. I could either try to talk him out of it or leave. Those are the choices.
The Attorney General's position as a cabinet member is perhaps unique from all of the cabinet members. Yes, a member of the President's cabinet, but the Attorney General has a unique responsibility to provide independent and objective advice to the President or any agency when it is sought, and sometimes perhaps even when it is not sought.
Everyone in that video, from Eric Holder
Fuck yeah.
to Jeff Sessions, spoke as one about the independence of the department. It's a point of pride at Justice to apply the law without the president's political self-interest, tainting its actions or dictating how it uses its authorities. But President Trump did find one candidate at Justice who seemed willing to do anything to help him stay in power.
He was the
Let's
second
hear
shift
what President
janitor.
Trump's own lawyer, Eric Hirschman, had to say about Jeff Clark's plan to overturn the election. I'd like to advise viewers this video contains some strong language.
Fucking A. He winked at the
And when
camera.
he finished discussing what he planned on doing,
This guy again.
I said, good sorry, effing a-hole. Congratulations, you just admitted a first step or act you take as Attorney General would be committing a felony and violating Rule 6C. You're clearly the right candidate for this job.
I know that guy and I have nothing in common, but I kind of love him.
Leading
so good.
The entire Department of Justice. What was his only
Look at that guy.
qualification?
Come on.
That he
Jesus
would do
Christ.
whatever the
This
president
guy has an
wanted
ice
him
cream
to do,
truck.
Yeah,
including
100%. And dead
overthrowing a
kids
free and
somewhere.
fair democratic election. President Trump's campaign to bend the Justice Department to his political will culminated in a showdown on January 3rd. Today, we will take you inside that early evening Oval Office meeting.
Oh, awesome.
Top Justice Department
Let's do this.
officials
Well, I
met
feel a
with
little
the
dizzy
president.
watching this.
At stake,
We need Madden in there and be like, boom, drawing with the pen and shit.
The meeting took about another
Jesus,
2.5
get a
hours
sunshine.
from the time I entered.
What the fuck?
He looks
It
like a
was
chud.
entirely focused on
He's
whether
the
there should be
bailest
a
man ever, and
DOJ
it's coming
leadership
from
change.
me.
He's clear.
I was sitting directly in front of the president.
Did you get him out of a
Jeff
cave?
Rosen was to my right. Jeff Clark was to my
His
left.
eyes
He's like
don't
one of
work.
those
They're
things that
ornamental.
evolved away from the sun.
Yeah.
We know is you're not going to do anything. You don't.
What did you record this on? A wax cylinder? What is happening?
A ballot, and here's someone who has a different view. So why shouldn't I do that? You know, that's how the discussion went.
They're trying to turn it up. They can't.
Proceeded.
Jeff Clark was proposing that
Sorry.
Jeff Rosen be replaced by Jeff Clark.
Yeah. They said replace the dude.
And I thought the proposal was asinine.
What were Clark's purported bases for why it was in the president's interest for him to step in? What would he do? How would things change, according to Mr. Clark in the meeting?
He repeatedly said to the president that if he was put in the seat, he would conduct real investigations that would, in his view, uncover widespread fraud. He would send out
I
the
promise
letter that
if I
he had
investigate, I'll
drafted,
discover the thing you want.
and
Exactly. That's
that
exactly what he thinks.
Holy shit.
This was a last opportunity to sort of set things straight with this defective election, and that he could do it, and he had the intelligence and the will and the desire to pursue these matters in the way that the president thought most appropriate.
And he was making a pitch, and every time he would get clobbered over the head, he would
With a justice bat?
call
Yeah, but
to
he was
order,
wearing a
the
fucking metal
president's
toupee, so it
decision.
just
You get the
clanged right
chance to
off.
make this decision, and you've heard everybody, and you can make your determination. And then we jump back in, and really clobber him.
I made the point that Jeff Clark is not even competent to serve as the Attorney General. He's never been a criminal attorney. He's never conducted a criminal investigation in his life.
He's an environmental
He's never
lawyer.
been a grand jury, much less a trial jury. And he kind of retorted by saying, well, I've done a lot of very complicated
I have a girlfriend in Canada.
Right?
Environmental
Okay,
litigation and
you
things
got
like
me
that.
there. I haven't done any of
I said,
that.
That's right.
I've
an
done-
environmental lawyer. How about you go back to your
I've been a
office?
third base.
We'll call you a lawyer.
And then that guy hit me with his justice
Pat
pen.
Cipollone weighed in at one point. I remember saying, you know, that letter that this guy wants to send, that letter is a murder-suicide pact. It's gonna damage everyone who touches it. And we should have nothing to do with that letter.
That's
I
amazing.
never want to see that letter again. And so we went along those lines.
I thought Jeff's proposal, Clark's proposal, was nuts. I mean, this guy said at a certain point, you know, listen, the best I can tell is the only thing you know about environmental and elections challenges is they both start with E. And based on your answer tonight, I'm not even
I'm
sure.
sorry. I kind of love this guy.
The president said, suppose I do this. Suppose I replace him, Jeff Rosen, with him, Jeff Clark. What do you do?
One Jeff for another Jeff. America won't even notice.
Before us did the right thing. But think about what happens if these justice officials make a different decision. What happens if they bow to the pressure? What would that do to us as a democracy, as a nation? Imagine a future where the president could screen applicants to the Justice Department with one question. Are you loyal to me or to the Constitution?
Forget
It
about
wouldn't take long to find people willing to pledge their loyalty to the man. We know many of President Trump's vocal supporters on January 6 also wanted the Justice Department to do whatever he asked, as long as it meant he could stay in power. They made sure Justice Department officials heard his message as they protested loudly in front of the department on their way to the Capitol on January 6th.
They're government workers, man.
Yeah, they're doing their job.
Yeah, it's
Live in D.C., we're marching to the Capitol. We are at the Department of Justice right now telling these cowards to do their job.
and then we're gonna go yell at a Denny's waitress.
I like that she had to narrate what was obviously happening. We're here yelling at people.
Then we're gonna ruin someone's day at IHOP.
Imagine the country's top prosecutor.
I'm gonna slap a waitress at
power to open
Shakey's.
investigations, subpoena, charge crimes, and seek imprisonment. Imagine that official pursuing the agenda of the other party instead of that of the American people as a whole. And if you're a Democrat, imagine it the other way around. Today, President Trump's total disregard
actually the
for
whole
the
Senate.
Constitution and his oath will be fully exposed. Now let's get this hearing underway so we
Let's
can
get
do
this
our
party
part
started.
to protect the freedoms we often take for granted. So that we
Now, if
can
everybody
see
would
how
please
close
raise
we
their hands
came
in their air like they
losing
just
it
do
all.
not care.
Now I yield back to the chairman.
I would like the witness
We're
to
joined
raise the
today
roof.
by three
Raise the roof,
distinguished
please.
witnesses who each served in the Trump administration in the months preceding January 6th. Mr. Jeffrey Rosen served at the Department of Justice from May 2019 until January 2021. With President Trump's nomination and the confirmation of the United States Senate, he became the United States Deputy Attorney General. In December 2020, he took the mantle of Acting Attorney General. Mr. Richard Donahue
Who
has
appoints?
served in the
Who has a
Department of
legitimate
Justice
presidency
for
and
over
appoints a new
14
attorney
years.
general? December
Donahue
of
was the
20.
United States Attorney for the Eastern
Like, what do you,
District of
nothing
New York.
legitimate is happening.
Then
Nothing.
became Mr. Rosen's Principal Associate Deputy Attorney
Like,
General.
all you have to do
and
is
finally,
avoid a world
Acting
war.
Deputy
That's it.
Attorney
You're
General.
coasting.
Mr.
Like, you sleep
Donahue
until
also
noon the
served
last 2 weeks.
More than 20 years in the
No
United
kidding,
States
right?
What the
military,
fuck?
I'm peeing in the
including
corners of the
87th
White House so the
Airborne
next guy can
and the
find
Judge
it.
Advocates General Corps. We
What, do they
also
have a cat?
joined by
What's
Mr.
going on
Stephen
here?
Engel, the former Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Legal Counsel. He was nominated by the former president and confirmed by the Senate during the Trump administration. He served from November 2017 to January 2021 and has now returned to private practice.
I thought that show
The
was
weeks
canceled.
leading to January 6th, the Department of Justice was fielding almost daily requests from the president to investigate claims of election fraud.
They're just like, go
Each claim
home.
was
Stop,
refuted
stop
time
hanging
and
out
time
here.
again. An effort Attorney General Barr described as whack-a-mole. When each of the president's efforts failed, he
Okay, Ian,
Yes.
I can hear your sound.
Yeah, it sounds literally terrible.
Well, of course you can hear my sound. I'm talking.
No, you
No, we can hear
knucklehead.
your room hiss.
Your room hiss is super loud.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did it stop? Oh wait, hold on. Oh no, my denoiser expired. I don't pay for it. Okay.
You got the most fucking budget ass bullshit setup. How do you have a?
Look.
Well, Cecil.
How
We
much
have
is
to
your
produce
How
records.
much is your denoiser? How much is it?
It doesn't
I don't
work
know,
because
but
I
we're
hear your
not sponsored by
noise.
them. It's only 90 minutes a day.
Can you just
we got a super chat
Can you
from
just
Comic.
Can you
Buy
just
it right now.
Can you just buy
What
it?
do we even give you a credit card for?
Yes. Okay.
Jesus, I only have 90 minutes a day. What's the super chat? Ian, turn your fucking noise down. Ian, get out. I'm gonna super chat us. I'm gonna super chat us. Give me a computer.
What's the super chat, Ian?
I'll do it right now. It says S. That's all it says from Comic. It says S.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and we got some more that were for the kitty cat.
Okay.
One of them said I shouldn't read it, so I don't know what
Okay,
to do.
so don't read it.
Okay.
I want to say this. Here's what I want. So in the next week in After Effects, I want you to do a short video of Trump popping up and Bill Barr hitting it like whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole.
I want you to do a short GIF of Bill Barr hitting
Whack-a-moling Trump
with a justice bat. Whack-a-mole.
Yes.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Write that down.
Bill Barr hitting Trump. Okay.
No, that's not what I said. That's
your
literally
notes-
not what I said.
This is why Sarah is a better employee.
Sarah,
can you write that down and
in
send it to
Slack
Ian?
for us? We appreciate it. Thank you. All right,
Wait,
we're going
Bill
back.
Burr?
Okay.
God damn
Hey,
it.
Ian, I can hear a noise from you.
Resorted
Okay,
to
I'm shutting-
installing a new attorney general to say the election was illegal and corrupt, simply so he could stay in power. President Trump started leaning on the Justice Department the first chance he got.
Yeah, because
On
he couldn't
November
stand up
29th,
straight,
his
so he
first
had to lean on
television
us.
interview after the election.
Where is the DOJ and the FBI in all of this, Mr. President? You have laid out some serious charges here. Shouldn't this
She looks
be
like Peppy
something
the
that
Frog.
the FBI
Yeah,
is
she does.
investigating? Are they?
Missing in
Is the
action.
DOJ investigating?
Missing in action.
Is that-
Can't tell you where
How
they
could you
are.
listen to this woman talk?
I have no.
Congressman
Everything
echoed the
she said
president
was
just
just
2
like
days later.
nails on a
They
chalkboard.
wrote
What a
a letter
horrible
to Attorney
voice.
General Barr,
Yikes.
laying into the Justice Department for a, quote, shocking lack of action in investigating the claims of election fraud. That same day, Attorney General Barr stated publicly that President Trump's claims had no merit. Ignoring the top law enforcement officer in the country, Republican congressmen amplified the stolen election message
This is fucking
to the American
awesome.
public. Let's listen.
I love he calls all his fucking cohorts. These
Good.
people
So there's
out.
widespread
Get it, Gomer.
evidence because people haven't done their jobs. Durham and Barr will deserve a big notation in history when it's written of the rise and fall of the United States if they don't clean up this mess, clean up the fraud, do your
I can't wait to
jobs,
outlive this
and
man.
save this little experiment in self-government.
Again,
I saw a hilarious tweet the other day, and I don't remember if it was on our Facebook fan page, but someone had tweeted a picture of them, and they said date night at the Scalia gravesite.
I saw that.
So funny.
Oh.
There's two, Gomer and fucking Trump.
Oh.
Date night at those two.
Yep.
Are you kidding me?
Mitch McConnell?
Oh, Mitch McConnell.
I will fuck on top of Mitch McConnell's grave.
I'll give him a facial from beyond. I'll jizz on his gravestone.
Join my colleagues in calling on Attorney General Barr to immediately
Be the only time anyone
Let
was
us know
hard
what
near
he's
Mitch
doing.
McConnell,
We're already
including Mitch
working
McConnell.
on challenging the certified.
It's a Gozerian.
And now what about the court?
This
How
fucking guy.
pathetic are the courts?
How pathetic are you?
With their job doing.
Look at this.
I'm joining with the fighters in the Congress, and we are going to object.
You can't
to
prove that's
electors
Matt Gaetz.
from states that didn't run clean elections. Democracy is left undefended.
Whose
if we accept
camera
the
is that?
result
How
of
can
a
the sound
stolen
quality be that
election
good
without
and the
fighting
fucking
with every
video
little
quality
vigor
is
we
that
can
bad?
muster?
I literally don't
ultimate
understand.
date of significance
guy.
is January 6th. This is how the process works. The ultimate arbiter here, the
I don't
ultimate
trust
check
the man
and
who ties
balance
it
is the
fucking tie
United
that
States
sloppily.
Congress. And when
He's a
something
piece
is
of
done
shit.
in an
He's a
unconstitutional
genuine piece
fashion,
of shit.
which happened in several of these states, we have a duty to step forward and have this debate and have this vote on the 6th of January.
Today is the day American patriots start taking down names and kicking ass.
All right, Mo.
Yeah, dude.
Mr. Donahue,
I think he got
on
fired.
December
Didn't he get
27th,
fired?
You had a
You're
90-minute
fired, Mo.
conversation with the president.
Fucking asshole.
Where he raised false claim after false claim with you and Mr. Rosen. How did you respond to what you called a, quote, stream of allegations?
The December 27th conversation was, in my mind, an escalation of the earlier conversations. As the former acting AG indicated, there were a lot of communications that preceded that. As we got later in the month of December, the president's entreaties became more urgent. He became more adamant that we weren't doing our job. We need to step up and do our job. And he had this arsenal of allegations that he wanted to rely on. And so I felt in that conversation that was incumbent on me to make it very clear to the president what our investigations had revealed, and that we had concluded, based on actual investigations,
right,
actual witness interviews, actual reviews of documents, that these allegations simply had no merit. And I wanted to try to cut through the noise, because it was clear to us that there were a lot of people whispering in his ear, feeding him these conspiracy theories and allegations. And I felt that being very blunt in that conversation might help make it clear to the president that these allegations were simply not true.
You can fucking
So as he went
reason.
through
That's
them
you can better reason with a dishwasher.
Yeah, right. Well, a dishwasher that, by the way, uses a lot less water than it
used to.
You got to wash your dishes like 40, 50 times.
You got to flush your toilet 6 times into the dishwasher.
To correct him, really in a serial fashion as he moved from one theory to another.
Can you give me an example of one or two of those theories?
So one that was very clear at that point was the Antrim County, the ASOG report that I mentioned earlier. The Allied Security Operations Group released this report that's at 68% error rate. There was, in fact, in Antrim County, a hand recount. Had nothing to do with the department. The department did not request that. That was
This
pursuant
report
to
was 68%
litigation brought by
error
other
rate.
parties. But there was a hand recount. So they were able to compare the hand recount to what the machines had reported. And for the ballots that were actually counted by the machine, more than 15,000, there was one error, one ballot. And I did a quick calculation and came up with 0.0063% error rate, which is well within tolerance. And so I made it very clear to the president, because he was so fixated on the ASOG report in the December 15th conversation, that in fact, our investigation revealed that the error rate was 0.0063%. So that, Mr. President's example of what people are telling you that is not true, and that you cannot and should not be relying on.
But he has Trump
So that was one very
knows what he's doing.
But he's listening to just fucking randos. He's listening to right-wing internet.
Truck driver who claimed to have moved an entire tractor-trailer of ballots from New York to Pennsylvania. That was also incorrect. We did an investigation with the FBI interview witnesses at the front end and the back end of that trailer.
Caliente.
Transit from New York to Pennsylvania. We
Went
looked
around
at
the
loading
world.
manifest. We interviewed witnesses, including, of course, the driver, and we knew it wasn't true. Whether the driver believed it or not was never clear to me, but it was just not true. So that was another one that I tried to educate the president on. There were a series of others. Mostly
My
in swing
favorite's coming up.
states,
It's
of
the
course.
best, Tom.
He wanted to talk a great deal about Georgia, the State Farm Arena video, which he believed, for various reasons, was
because he wanted to believe.
Fraud staring you right in the face.
Were any of the allegations he brought up found credible? Did you find any of them credible?
No.
So during this conversation, did you take handwritten notes directly quoting the president?
I did, and to make it clear, Attorney General Rosen called me on my government cell phone. So
These are not people that were anti-Trumpers. These are guys that worked for Trump.
I was
appointed by him.
Right.
Better versed in what the department had done, just because I had closer contact with the investigations. And
I love that he
the
took
AG asked
fucking
me to
notes.
get on
Could
the
be
call.
like,
Of course,
I'm
I
not going to go
agreed.
down with this shit.
Yeah,
And I
fuck it,
began
dude.
taking
You've got
notes
to. You've got to be like, no.
Only because at the outset the president made an allegation I had not heard. I'd heard many of these things. I knew many of them were investigated. But when the president, at least when I came to the conversation, when he began speaking, he brought up an allegation I was completely unaware of. And of course that concerned us. So I simply reached out and grabbed a notepad off my wife's nightstand and a pen, and I started jotting it down. That had to do with an allegation that more than 200,000 votes were certified in the state of Pennsylvania that were not actually cast. Sometimes the president would say it was 205, sometimes he would say it was 250, but I'd not heard this before, and I want to get the allegation down
You couldn't
clearly.
really get it right.
So
'cause
that
you didn't know,
when
'cause
you
it was
make
a
up
lie.
numbers, you
and
forget
that's
the
why
lie
I
you
started
made up.
taking those notes, and then as the conversation continued, I just continued to take the notes.
Let's take a look at the notes, if we could, right now. As we can see on the screen,
Please
you
draw a
actually
picture
quote
of Trump.
President Trump asking, "Where's DOJ?" Just like we heard him say in his first television interview. How did you respond to that?
So both the acting AG and I tried to explain to the president on this occasion and on several other occasions that the Justice Department has a very important, very specific, but very limited role in these elections. States run their elections. We are not quality control for the states. We are obviously interested in and have a mission that relates to criminal conduct in relation to federal elections. We also have related civil rights responsibilities. So we do have an important role. But the bottom line was, if a state ran their election in such a way that it was defective, that is to the state or Congress to correct. It is not for the Justice Department to step in. And
Not our
I
job, not our
certainly
purview.
Glad that
understood
he
the
wants the
president
Justice
as a
Department to
layman, not
micromanage because he
understanding
wants
why
to
the
fix
Justice
it. That's
Department
why.
didn't have
Because
at
he
least
appoints these
a
guys.
civil role to step in and bring suit.
This is a
on
guy who,
behalf
like,
of
if he
the
gets you the
American
job,
people.
you owe him your
We tried
lawyer.
to explain
Exactly
that
it,
to him.
man.
The American people do not constitute the client for the United States Justice Department. The one and only client of the United States Justice Department is the United States government. And the United States government does not have standing, as we were repeatedly told by our internal teams, OLC led by Steve Engel, as well as the Office of the Solicitor General, researched it and gave us thorough, clear opinions that we simply did not have standing. And we tried to explain that to the president on numerous occasions.
It's the one time you could be like, that's
Let's take
not my fucking
look at
job.
Another one of your
You
notes.
like, you don't have to explain that more than
You
once.
also
It's
noted
simple.
that Mr. Rosen said to Mr. Trump,
Well, he's
quote,
too simple to
DOJ
understand
can't
it, though.
and won't snap its fingers and change the outcome of the election. How did the president respond to that, sir?
He responded very quickly and said, essentially, that's not what I'm asking you to do. What I'm just asking you to do is just say it was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman.
You believe that shit?
So
Yeah,
let's now put
I
up the notes
unfortunately do.
where you quote the president. As we're
Fucking
speaking
A,
to
he
that.
wrote
said,
that
the president said, just say the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman. So, Mr. Donahue, that's a direct quote from President Trump, correct?
That's an exact quote from the president, yes.
Put him in jail.
The next note
Thank you.
shows that
He's
that
got to
the
go to jail
president
for
kept
this,
pressing.
right? God, I want to see him
Even
in
though he'd
orange.
been told that there was no evidence of
I want to see him
fraud,
in handcuffs.
The president keeps saying that the department was, quote, obligated to tell people that this was an illegal, corrupt election.
That's also an exact quote from the president, yes.
Let me just be clear. Did the department find any evidence to conclude that there was anything illegal or corrupt about the 2020 election?
There were isolated instances of fraud. None of them came close to calling into question the outcome of the election.
We heard it earlier. It's like 4 votes, dude.
How would you describe the president's demeanor during that call?
He was more agitated than he was on December 15th.
More agitated than normal?
The president, throughout all of these meetings and telephone conversations, was adamant that he had won and that we were not doing our job. But it did escalate over time until ultimately the meeting on January 3rd, which was sort of the most extreme of the meetings and conversations.
So I want to make sure we don't gloss this
Extreme
over.
meeting.
Just say it was corrupt.
Like fucking just serving Mountain Dew
leave the
only at the
rest
meeting.
to us. The president wanted the top Justice Department officials to declare that the election was corrupt, even though, as he knew, there was absolutely no evidence to support that statement. The president didn't care about actually investigating the facts. He just wanted the Department of Justice to put its stamp of approval on the lies. Who was going to help him? Well, Jeff Clark. Mr. Rosen, on Christmas Eve, your first
the second shift
day
janitor.
as
Third string,
acting
yeah,
Attorney
right?
General,
Yeah.
President Trump called you. What did he want to talk
Christmas Eve. I'd hang up.
The same things he was talking about publicly. He wanted to talk about that he thought the
Damn,
election
dude.
had been stolen.
That is a red man.
Corrupt, and that there was
He looks
widespread
fake.
fraud.
Aged a lot.
And I had told him that our reviews
He
had
seriously
not
looks
shown that
fake.
to be the case. So
I hope my hair goes that
we
white.
had an extended
It's
discussion.
really white, huh?
probably
I hope it
15,
goes
maybe 20
white,
minutes,
like-
something like that.
White.
With him urging that the Department of Justice should be doing more with regard to election fraud.
Did he mention Jeff Clark's name?
Yes. It was just in passing. He made what I regarded as a peculiar reference. I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something about, did I know Jeff Clark, or did I know who he was, or something like that.
You ever fucking heard of Jeff Clark?
Hey, this fucking
The
guy.
conversation just moved on, but when I hung up, I was quizzical as to how does the president even know Mr. Clark?
How does he know
I was
our
not
coffee
aware that they
guy?
had ever
I don't
met,
understand.
or that the president had been involved with any of the issues in the civil division.
So it was a bit of a surprise when he brought his name up.
Yes.
So Mr. Clark was the acting head of the Civil Division and head of Environmental and Natural Resources Division at the Department of Justice. Do either of those divisions have any role whatsoever in investigating election fraud, sir?
No. And to my awareness, Jeff Clark had had
I know this
prior
answer is
involvement of any
self-fucking
kind.
evident.
I
but-
realize this is a softball
Work that
pitch.
the department was
Watch me
doing.
work.
The Attorney General Barr has talked about to this committee.
So let's take a minute and explain why the president mentioned Jeff Clark's name to Mr. Rosen here on Christmas Eve. On December
wanted
21st,
a
some
gift.
Republican members of Congress met with President Trump.
He was looking for
in the
a
White House
fucking
to talk
lawyer with a
about
heart 2
overturning the
sizes too
2020
small.
election. Let's hear Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene talk about how this meeting got
Oh,
set
do
up.
we have to?
I was the only new member at the meeting. I called President Trump on Saturday and said, we've got to have a meeting. There's many of us that feel like this election has been stolen.
So on the screen, you'll see that President Trump's Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, tweeted about that meeting right after it happened. He said, quote, several members of Congress just finished a meeting
Meadows
in
is
the
going
Oval
to
Office
Meadows,
with President Donald
6
Trump,
ways from Sunday with
I
preparing
hope
to
so.
fight back
I
against
hope so.
mounting evidence
I
of
hope
voter
these
fraud.
fucking
Stay
guys-
tuned.
Ways from Sunday.
On the same day, he
I hope
met
these
with
fucking guys-
elected members of
Fucking
Congress.
orange,
President
dude.
Trump called into a
None of them
conservative
will see a
political
fucking jail
convention.
cell.
No, they won't.
And he
But I
used
hope
the
that they're
opportunity
ruined.
to pressure
I
the
hope that they are
Department of Justice
absolutely ruined.
to investigate
I want
his
him to put him in
bogus
fucking
claims.
Bernie Madoff's cell.
Right.
The problem is we need a party that's going to fight, and we have some great congressmen and women that are doing it, and we have others, some great fighters, but we won this in a landslide. They know it, and we need backing from, like, the Justice Department, and other people have to finally step up.
The Select Committee obtained records from the National Archives that show that Scott Perry was one of the congressmen who joined that meeting. We learned from White House records that you'll now see on the screen that the very next day, Representative Perry returned to the White House. This time he brought a Justice Department official named Jeffrey Clark. Representative Perry provided the following statement to his local TV affiliate. He said, quote, throughout the past 4 years, I've
Great
worked with
picture of him.
Assistant
I
Attorney
know.
General Clark on various legislative matters. When President Trump asked if I would make an introduction, I obliged. But why Jeff Clark? Let's hear Mr. Giuliani explain the kind of person that he and the president wanted at the top of justice.
Remember ever recommending to anybody that Mr. Clark.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're talking to
Jeffrey
Nosferatu. I
Clark
wanted
of
Rudy
DOJ
Giuliani. Is Rudy
be
Giuliani
given
there?
election-related responsibilities.
Sorry, I was drinking blood. It is so I could stay alive.
You mean beyond the president?
Correct.
I only answer questions at Four Seasons.
Plead the fifth. Fifth.
Well, beyond the president, I do recall saying to people
Thank goodness half his face is gone.
that somebody should be put in charge of the Justice Department who isn't frightened of what's going to be done to their reputation. Because the Justice Department was filled with people like that.
people who are afraid of
people with integrity.
Right.
What's going to be done to their reputation? Mr. Donahue, when you told the president that you
All these
wouldn't
people
pursue
think that if you
baseless claims
break a
of
law,
fraud,
it's going to look bad.
is it because you were worried
I've
about
broken
your
hundreds of
reputation?
laws.
Not at all.
Mr. Clark's name was also mentioned in the White House in late December and early January, as described by a top aide to Mark Meadows, Cassidy Hutchinson.
Was it your understanding that Representative Perry was pushing for a specific person to take over the department?
He wanted Mr. Jeff Clark to take over the Department of Justice.
She looks like she got called in
Trump on
and is
December
like
24th.
in
You
trouble
spoke with, Mr.
with
Clark
her
on
dad.
December 26th
100%.
about his contact with the president. Can you tell us about
She's
that
a contrite.
conversation?
Yes. Because I had been quizzical about why his name had come up, I called him.
This is what the Human Torch would
tried
look
to
like if he
explore
aged.
If he would share.
If someone
if there was something I would know. And after some back and forth, he
Jesus.
acknowledged that shortly before Christmas,
I love that he gets
he
called
had
up by his
gone to
boss.
a meeting in the Oval Office with the president. That, of course, surprised me, and I asked him, how did that happen? And he was defensive. He said it had been unplanned, that he had been talking to
we just had a
someone
few
he
drinks, and
referred
then
to as, General
One thing led to another.
Congressman Perry. And that, unbeknownst to him, he was asked to go to a meeting, and he didn't know it, but it turned out it was at the Oval. He found himself at the Oval Office.
Wait,
And,
the Oval Office?
I was wandering
Like you
around
do.
and I was in the Oval Office all of a
So I
sudden.
swiped right, and there I was.
What?
Yeah.
After the fact. This is not appropriate. But he was contrite and said it had been inadvertent and it would not happen again, and that if anyone asked
It's
him to
against
go to
ethics.
such a
He's not
meeting,
allowed to go there.
he would notify.
Really?
It's actually
Mr.
against.
Donahue
It's actually
and me.
against ethics.
Is there a
That's why
policy
the
that
ethics
governs,
guy's sitting there.
Okay.
Who can have contact directly with the White House?
Here.
Yes. So across many administrations. for-
Sorry, I got a
for,
little ahead, but the
long
question
period
here
of time,
is what he asked. Listen,
inadvertent, and it would not happen again. And that
I
if
got ahead
anyone
of the
asked him
testimony.
to go to such a meeting, he would notify Rich Donahue and me.
Is there a policy that governs who can have contact directly with the White House?
Yes. So across many administrations for a long period of time, there's a policy that, particularly with regard to criminal investigations, restricts at both the White House end and the Justice Department end those more sensitive issues to the highest ranks. So for criminal matters, the policy for a long time has been that only the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General from the DOJ side can have conversations about criminal matters with the White House, or the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General can authorize someone for a specific item with their permission, but the idea is to make sure that the top rung of the Justice Department knows about it and is in the thing to control it and make sure only appropriate things are done.
Mr. Ringo, from your perspective, why
So he
is
wasn't
it
even allowed to
important
be
have
there.
a
Like,
policy
ethically,
that
wasn't
Mr.
allowed.
Rosen just discussed?
It's a fucking end
Well,
run.
it's
It's
critical
running.
that
It's
the
a
Department
flank.
of Justice
Yeah.
conducts its criminal investigations free from either the reality or any appearance of political interference, and so people can get in trouble if
I like that
people
tie
at
on
the
the
White
left
House
there.
are speaking with people
Striped
at the
one.
department.
The
and that's
striped one?
why
Yeah, striped one. The
purpose
far
of
striped
these
one.
policies
Right.
is to keep these communications as infrequent and at the highest levels as possible, just to make sure that people who are less careful about it, who don't really understand these implications, such as Mr. Clark, don't run afoul of those contact policies.
Thank you. So the Select Committee conducted an informal interview with the White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, and his deputy, Pat Philbin, about their contact with Mr. Clark, though neither has yet agreed to sit for transcribed and videotaped interviews.
Huh.
But
Well,
Pat
imagine.
Cipollone told the Select Committee that he intervened when he heard Mr. Clark was meeting with the president about legal matters without his knowledge, which was strictly against White House policy. Mr. Cipollone and Mr. Philbin, like Mr. Rosen, told Mr. Clark to stand down, and he didn't. On the same day, Acting Attorney General Rosen told Mr. Clark to stop talking to the White House, Representative Perry was urging Chief of Staff Mark Meadows to elevate Clark within the Department of Justice. You can now see on the screen behind me a series of
look at
texts
you.
between Representative Perry and Mr. Meadows. They show that Representative Perry requested that Mr. Clark be elevated within the department. Representative Perry tells Mr. Meadows on December 26th that, quote, Mark, just checking in as time continues to count down. 11 days to January 6th and 25 days to inauguration. We've got to get going.
He said we got
Representative Perry followed up and says, quote, Mark, you should call Jeff. I just got off the phone with him, and he explained to me why the principal deputy won't work, especially with the FBI. They will view it as not having the authority to enforce what needs to be done.
Just sent you something.
No,
on
they're sending.
Signal.
Mr. Meadows
What the
responds
fuck is?
with, I
This is
got
not
it.
a legitimate.
I think I understand. Let me work on the deputy position. Representative Perry then texts, Roger, just sent you something on Signal. Just sent you an updated file. Did you call Jeff Clark? Mr. Donahue, Representative Perry called you the next day on December 27th. Who told him to call you?
My understanding is the president did at the outset of the call. Congressman Perry told me that he was calling at the behest of the president.
What did he want to talk about?
The
You want to
weather.
talk about Pennsylvania in particular?
How great
gave
it
me
is.
some
Poconos.
background about
Nobody's ever
why
said that. Nobody's ever wanted to call and talk about how great Pennsylvania
I
is.
always wanted to go to the
People don't
Poconos just to see
necessarily
it.
trust the FBI.
The Poconos?
Yeah.
And then he went into some
Like,
allegations.
it's supposed to be pretty, right? Isn't it
Yeah,
supposed to be
right?
like it's like
I
a
wanna-
honeymoon
I wanna
spot
go,
for
like,
the East
sit in, like, a
Coasters?
champagne
This
bubble bath or
allegation
something.
that,
That sounds fun.
We should go.
Secretary
We'll
of
get a
Let's do it.
champagne
Let's
bubble
do it.
bath, buddy.
Let's do it. Sounds good. If Trump gets prosecuted, we'll take photos,
Yes.
selfies of ourselves in a champagne
If
bubble bath.
Trump gets prosecuted, we'll fill that bubble
Mr.
bath
Perry
with fucking
said that he
champagne.
With champagne.
100%.
Absolutely.
We'll let those bubbles tickle my
Investigations
nethers.
had been done, that there was some sort of forensic type report that would be helpful to me. And I didn't know Congressman Perry. I'd never heard of him before this conversation, but I said, sir, if you've got something that you think is relevant to what the Justice Department's mission is, you should feel free to send it to me. And he did. And I was en route from New York to Washington. I got it. I looked at it on my iPhone. Obviously, I couldn't read the whole thing in transit like that, but I looked at it to get a feel for what it was, and then I forwarded it to the United States Attorney for the Western District of Pennsylvania.
Did they get back to you? What did they conclude?
Scott Brady looked at it. He was the Western District of Pennsylvania U.S. Attorney. Took him a couple days, but he got back
Because
in
it's bullshit.
relatively short
It went to
order
the
with a
back of
pretty
his
clear
fucking
explanation for why
queue.
there was no foundation for concern.
Yeah.
The Secretary of State
Because
had
nothing
not
you find on the
certified
internet is true.
more votes than were actually cast. The difference between the
There's a bunch of made up shit some assholes on
5.25
Parler
that
were
was actually
vomiting out.
certified by the
Somebody
Secretary
made
of
it up 'cause they
State
wanted to
and
believe
5
it.
million that was on a public-facing website was that the information on the website was incomplete because 4 counties had not uploaded their data.
So no credibility to that.
There was zero to that, right?
During that call, did Scott Perry mention Mr. Clark, and what did he say about him, if so?
He did. He mentioned Mr. Clark. He said something to the effect of, I think Jeff Clark is great, and I think he's the kind of guy who could get in there and do something about this stuff. And this was coming on the heels of the president having mentioned Mr. Clark in the afternoon call earlier that day.
I'd like to yield to the gentlewoman from Wyoming, Vice Chair Cheney.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kinzinger. I thank the gentleman for yielding. As
love that the
we discussed
Republicans are
earlier,
grilling
at the
him, man.
center of
I love
Mr.
it.
Clark's plan
There's
to undo
this is
President
just straight.
Trump's
It's not
election
like
loss,
there's no
was a
point
letter.
counterpoint,
Mr.
no
Donahue,
speechifying.
on December 28th,
So good.
Mr.
This is-
Clark emailed you
this is
and Mr.
brutal.
Rosen
It is.
a draft letter that he wanted you to sign and send to Georgia state officials. You testified that this could have, quote, grave constitutional consequences. Mr. Donahue, can you tell us what you meant by that?
Well, I had to read both the email and the attached letter twice to make sure I really understood what he was proposing because it was so extreme to me. I had a hard time getting my head around it initially. But I read it and I did understand it for what he intended, and I had to sit down and sort of compose what I thought was an appropriate response. I actually initially went next door to the acting AG's office, but he was not there. We were both on that email. I knew we would both have probably a very similar reaction to it. He was not in his office, so I returned to my office and I sat down to draft a response because I thought it was very important to give a prompt response rejecting this out of hand. There were, in my response, I explained a number of reasons this is not the department's role to suggest or dictate to state legislatures how they should select their electors. But more importantly, this was not based on fact. This was actually contrary to the facts as developed by department investigations over the last several weeks and months.
That
So
guy
I
behind him
responded to
just wake
that,
up?
and for the
Yeah, I
department to
know.
insert itself into the political
The guy with the bed
process
head
this way,
and the
I think
grumpy,
would
grumpy
have
face.
had grave
Why are you
consequences for the
there?
country. It may very
He
well
looks
have
like
spiraled
he
us
looks like
into a
Bryan
constitutional
Cranston from
crisis.
Malcolm in the Middle.
Yes.
And I wanted to make sure that he understood
He
the gravity of the
does.
situation, because he didn't seem to really.
But sad.
Yeah,
And
sad
what was Mr.
Cranston.
Clark's reaction when you sent this email to him?
He didn't respond directly to the email, but we met shortly after that. After I sent the email, the acting AG returned. I went to his office. He had just read it. He had a very similar reaction to me. He was exasperated, and he told me that he had told one of his administrative assistants to get Jeff Clark up here. We want to talk to him face to face.
Get him up
about
here.
this. And
Get
so
that
we
motherfucker.
I know he's in the janitor's closet. Bring him up.
that night in the Deputy Attorney General's conference room.
He's busy standing in the
One
way
of
of
the things you
environmental
said to Mr.
protection. Get
Clark
him up
was,
here. He's got.
Quote, what you are
He's
doing
getting
is nothing
coffee
less
for the
than the
level.
United States Justice Department meddling in the outcome of a presidential election. And I assume you conveyed that to him as well in your meeting that evening?
Yes, in those very words. It was a very contentious meeting, but yes, that was said amongst other things.
And despite this contentious meeting and your strong reaction to the letter, did Mr. Clark continue to push his concept in the coming days?
He did, yes. We had subsequent meetings and conversations. The acting AG probably had more contact with him than I did, but between the 28th and the 2nd, when we had another in-person meeting, he clearly continued to move down this path. He began calling witnesses and apparently conducting investigations of his own. He got a briefing from DNI about purported foreign intelligence interference. And we thought perhaps once it was explained to him that there was no basis for that part of his concern, that he would retreat. But instead he doubled down and said, well, okay, so there's no foreign interference. I still think there are enough allegations out there that we should go ahead and send this letter, which shocked me even more than the initial one, because you would think after a couple of days of looking at this, he, like we, would have come to the same conclusion that it was completely unfounded.
And when you learned that he had been calling witnesses and conducting investigations on his own, did you confront him?
Yes.
And what was his reaction?
Got very defensive.
He's got a fucking
as I said,
rogue,
there were a series of
fake
conversations
attorney
through that
general
week. I certainly
going around
remember
doing
specifically
fucking
the
investigations
conversation
he's
we
not
meeted on
qualified or
January
allowed
2nd.
to do.
Yep.
That got even more
Guy's ethically-
confrontational, but he was
Shouldn't be
defensive.
barred
and,
from doing it, yeah.
You know, similar to his
Bill
earlier
barred.
reaction when I said this is nothing less than Justice Department meddling in an election, his reaction was, I think a lot of people have meddled in this election.
Why shouldn't I be one of them?
Yeah.
Clung to that, and then
Why not me?
spewed out some of these theories, some of which we'd heard from the president, but others which were floating around the internet and media, and just kept insisting that the department needed to act and needed to send those letters.
The committee has also learned that Mr. Clark was working with another attorney at the department named Ken Klukowski, who drafted this letter to Georgia with Mr. Clark.
Look at that guy.
Mr.
Look at that
Klukowski,
guy.
had
It looks like
arrived
somebody
at the
drew a
department
face on a
December
thumb.
15th, with just 36
Right?
days left until
He
the
does.
inauguration.
It's like a thumb person.
He was specifically assigned to work under Jeff Clark. And Mr. Klukowski also worked with John Eastman, who we showed you at our hearing last week was one of the primary architects of President Trump's scheme to overturn the election. The Georgia letter that we've been discussing specifically talks about some of Dr. Eastman's theories, including, quote, the purpose of the special session the department recommends would be for the General Assembly to determine whether the election failed to make a proper and valid choice between the candidates, such that the General Assembly could take whatever action is necessary to ensure that one of the slates of electors cast on December 14th will be accepted by Congress on January 6th. The committee's also learned that the relationship between Dr. Eastman and Mr. Klukowski persisted after Mr. Klukowski joined the Justice Department. Let's take a look at an email recommending that Mr. Klukowski and Dr. Eastman brief Vice President Pence and his staff. Other recipients of this email included the Chief of Staff to Congressman Louis Gohmert. And the email says,
Jesus
as stated
Christ.
last week, I believe the Vice President and his staff would benefit greatly from a briefing by John and Ken. As I also mentioned, we want to make sure we don't overexpose Ken, given his new position. This email suggests that Mr. Klukowski was simultaneously working with Jeffrey Clark to draft the proposed letter to Georgia officials to overturn their certified election.
Nice.
And working with Dr. Eastman to help pressure the vice president to overturn the election. I want to thank all of our witnesses for being here today and for answering our questions about this letter and other issues. We asked Mr. Clark some of the same questions that we've asked you, and here's how he answered.
How did he answer? I can't wait.
Did you discuss this draft letter to Georgia officials with the President of the United States?
Fifth, and executive privilege, again, just restated for the abundance of caution.
Okay, if you look again at the draft letter, in the first paragraph, second sentence says, the department will update you as we are able on investigatory progress, but at this time we have identified significant concerns that may have impacted the outcome of the election in multiple states, including the state of Georgia. Isn't that in fact contrary to what Attorney General Barr had said on December 1st, 2020?
Fifth.
Like, if that is a question that you have to plead the fifth to,
fucking awesome.
The final email.
All right. So I wound up skipping some of the final testimony here. There's, at this point, we have 20 minutes left. Some of the stuff I get is at the end of the final piece, but I kept a piece in here about one of the conspiracy theories, and I also kept the final closing remarks. But I want to say that there's a long bit where Trump and, you know, that Oval Office flyby, they talk a lot about them sitting together and one person coming in, and essentially, and what they're talking about is the president basically saying, hey, let's get this guy. This guy should be your new boss, essentially.
Right,
Everybody in the entire meeting is like, we will all resign right now.
Really?
We'll just walk away. And they're like, and then he's like, okay, fine, I didn't do it. So that's why I didn't really.
That's amazing, though.
Because he got pressured, and then they all basically said, we're just gonna. I
We'll
will
just all quit.
I will just quit,
We'll
and everybody
all
in
quit.
this meeting will quit. And there's like 15 guys there, and they're like, yeah, we'll all just quit. And so that's what I cut out. But there's still a lot more.
you've
There's
got,
still 20 minutes left.
Cecil, real quick, and I know you got to play this, but like, if it's like December 20, whatever the fuck it is, and you've got seriously 2 weeks, and you're fired. In 2 weeks, if you're
There's
these
a couple
guys,
of these, this guy basically said the same thing. He's like, I'll just go home for 2 weeks.
right? Why wouldn't you just go home anyway?
Yeah.
Be like, this is falling apart. This fucking guy's nuts.
The good
I'm
thing,
out.
I will say though, it's good that some of these people stayed, because if they didn't, then
Yeah,
this
maybe
Clark
that's
guy
why they
would've
stayed.
came up,
Yeah.
you know,
And that's probably why they
that
stayed.
Clark
They
guy
probably
would
were
have been
like,
at it, and they've been
yeah.
like, great, now he's sending fucking letters to Georgia.
Here included a completely baseless conspiracy
awesome,
theory
Tom.
that an Italian defense contractor uploaded software to a satellite that switched votes from Trump to Biden.
That's fucking
The
amazing.
Select Committee investigation
Christ.
found that this wild, baseless conspiracy theory made it from the recesses of the internet to the highest echelons of our government.
Jesus!
On December 31st, Mr. Meadows received this internet conspiracy
God, people are
theory
fucking
Check this
from
out.
garbage.
Representative Perry.
This is from a representative to this.
On the screen
Meadows.
now is the text that Representative Perry sent to Mr. Meadows.
Here's a YouTube
copying
link.
A YouTube link with the message, quote, why can't we just work with the Italian government? The next
This is a
day, the
fucking
president's
representative.
chief of staff sent the YouTube link to Mr. Rosen.
Jesus.
Forwarded it to Mr. Donahue. Mr. Donahue.
You fucking
did
idiots are
watch
sitting
this
around
video?
YouTube links.
I did, Congressman.
Watch this guy
How long
too. They're
was the
going to play
video?
part of the video.
Approximately 20 minutes.
Let's just take a look at an excerpt of that video, if we may.
Who is this?
What's being said out of Rome, out of Italy, is that this was done in the U.S. Embassy. That there was a certain State Department guy whose name I don't know yet. I guess this is probably going to come out in Italy.
I think his
at
name is
some point.
Shutterstock.
And he was the mastermind, not the mastermind.
He's Sub-Zero.
Anyway, the guy running the
No, he's-
operation.
No,
of
he's
changing the
Scorpion
votes.
because he's throwing a
And
fireball.
that
There
he
you
was
go.
stuck
Yeah, oh,
in
yeah,
this
yeah,
in
yeah.
conjunction with some support from MI6, the CIA.
Get over
and
here.
This Leonardo group.
Mr. Donahue, what was your reaction when you watched that entire
He's
20-minute
harpooning
video?
fucking Trump right in the chest.
What the fuck is happening?
I emailed the acting attorney general and I said pure insanity. The video, which was patently absurd.
Mr. Rosen, you were asked by Mr. Meadows to meet with Mr. Johnson, who is the person in that video. What was your reaction to that request?
So ordinarily, I'd get an email like this, and there was no phone call. It would just, come over the transom. But this one, he called me, Mr. Meadows, and asked me to meet with Mr. Johnson. And I told him this whole thing about Italy had been debunked, and that should be the end of that.
Because of course it was.
With this person.
Like, it was actually Croatian
seemed to accept
dragons.
that.
What?
He said,
It's actually gay frogs from Alex Jones's fucking aquarium.
This it's like a Mad Libs thing.
So stupid.
Name a
In the
country.
United States, there's 55 of them. And he said, okay. But then he called me back a few minutes later.
He said, sure, okay, it's
complained
baseless.
And said, I didn't tell you, but this fellow Johnson is working with Rudy Giuliani, and Mr. Giuliani is really offended that you think they have to go to a FBI field office. That's insulting. So couldn't you just have the FBI or you meet with these guys? And by then I was somewhat agitated and told him that there was no way on earth that I was going to do that.
God, can you just say
I
go
wasn't gonna
fuck
meet
yourself?
with Mr.
Right.
Johnson. I certainly wasn't going to meet with Mr. Giuliani. I'd made that clear repeatedly, and so that's the end of that. Don't raise this with me
Don't
again.
call me again.
Right.
And so because Mr.
Sir, this is a
Donahue and I had been
Wendy's.
exchanging our views about this. I think it was 7:13 on a Friday night of New Year's Day. Had
Jesus.
You can't pay me enough money to do that. You can't pay me enough money to call me that.
Fucking 7 o'clock on New
Fuck
Year's,
you.
and someone's like, "Hey, watch this crazy YouTube conspiracy video."
Fuck you.
Just to
Get me a
button this up,
meeting
Mr.
with
Donahue, did you
Giuliani.
receive
Eat a
follow-up call
fucking
from
dick. Leave me
Department
alone.
Of Defense official about this conspiracy?
I'm drinking too much
I
wine
did.
and go
I'll
to
do
bed at
that.
11:30. Don't you fucking call me.
Give details on that at all?
I received a telephone call from Kash Patel, who I know was a DOD official at that time, worked for
Cash Patel sounds like definitely sounds like a video game character.
It does.
Yeah.
And he didn't know much about it. He basically said,
I've been jumping at this box all day, and it's been shitting out coins.
And I informed him
Dun,
that
dun,
the Chief of
dun,
Staff
dun,
raised
dun.
the
Kash
issue with
Patel.
us in his office on December 29th, that we had looked into it a little bit. We had run the name that was provided to us by the Chief of
You
Staff.
got how much time is
Learned
being
that
wasted
individual was in custody
and
in
money
Italy.
I know,
and
man.
energy.
What are these guys'
Chasing
salaries?
nonsense.
And they're like, yeah, check out this fucking YouTube video. We paid that guy's salary
Right.
for 20 minutes to watch a YouTube video.
He was either an employee or a contractor of that company, and he was in custody. That the whole thing was very, very murky at best, and the video was absurd. But that we, the department, were not going to have anything to do with it, and DOD should make up its own mind as to what they're going to do. But
Yeah, and they did
I made
nothing.
it clear to him that I didn't think it was anything worth pursuing.
She called the video absurd, and despite the absurdity of that conspiracy theory, we learned that Mr. Meadows discussed it frequently in the White House. And Mr. Meadows didn't let the matter go. The request
Mr.
went from
Meadows
the
is gonna
Department of
get
Justice
fucking
to the Secretary of
fucked.
Defense, Christopher Miller.
I hope so, and I
So
hope
here,
Ginny Thomas
Secretary
does
Miller
too.
Me
actually
too.
reached
I hope
out
it
to a
fucking
high-ranking
ruins that
official
woman.
based in Italy.
And I hope it
to
ruins her
follow up on this
shitty
claim.
husband.
The ask for him was, can you call out the defense attaché Rome and find out what the heck's going on, because I'm getting all these weird, crazy reports, and probably the guy.
You're not getting a report. You watched a YouTube video.
The Select
That's
Committee
not a
confirmed
report.
that a call was
A report is
actually
like,
placed by
hey, I'm the
Secretary
CIA
Miller
and I've got some
to the
fucking
attaché in
info.
Italy
I
to
jotted
investigate
things on this
the claim
notepad.
that Italian
Yeah.
satellites were switching votes from Trump to Biden.
Yeah.
This is one of the best examples of the lengths to which the President Trump would go to stay in power. Scouring the internet to support his conspiracy theories shown here.
I love it so
as
much.
he told Mr. Donahue in that
You guys may
December
not be
27th
following
call,
the
quote,
internet the way I
You
do.
guys may not be following the internet the way I do.
Amazing. Amazing.
So in today's hearing, showcase the efforts
This is the
of
end.
the Americans
So I cut out.
before us.
I cut out. You'll hear about it, but I did cut out that big long part where they basically said,
That's not.
I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna work for this guy, and we'll all quit." And then
Okay.
then Trump was like, "Okay, fine."
Right.
To stand up for democracy. Mr. Rosen, Mr. Donahue stayed steadfastly committed to the oath they take as officials in the Department of Justice. On January 6th itself, they assisted during the attack while our commander-in-chief stayed silent. Their bravery is a high moment in the sordid story of what led to January 6th. My colleagues and I up here also take an oath. Some of them failed to uphold theirs and instead chose to spread the big lie. Days after the tragic events of January 6th, some of these same Republican members requested pardons in the waning days of the Trump administration. 5 days after the attack on the Capitol, Representative Mo Brooks sent the email on the screen now.
Subject pardons.
Wow.
As you see, he emailed the White House, quote, pursuant to a request from Matt Gaetz, requesting a pardon for Representative Gaetz himself
For everybody
and
pushing
unnamed
this fucking
others.
shit.
Witnesses told the Select Committee that
Wow.
the president considered offering pardons to a wide range of individuals connected to the president. Let's listen to some of that testimony.
And was Representative Gates requesting a pardon?
Believe so. The general tone was, we may get prosecuted because we were defensive of, the president's positions on these things. The pardon that he was requesting, was as broad as you could describe. From the beginning, I remember he's from the beginning of time up until today. He mentioned Nixon, and I said Nixon's pardon was never nearly that broad.
It was as long as his bat.
Are you aware of any members of Congress seeking pardons? I guess Mr. Gaetz and Mr. Brooks, I know, have both advocated for there to be a blanket pardon for members involved in that meeting, and a handful of other members that weren't at the December 21st meeting as the preemptive pardons. Mr. Gaetz was personally pushing for a pardon, and he was doing so since early December. I'm not sure why. Mr. Gaetz had reached out to me to ask if...
It's because he dates little kids.
I know, right? That's a fucking multi-purpose pardon.
Not all of them, but several of them did.
So you mentioned Mr. Gaetz, Mr. Brooks.
Mr. Biggs did. Mr. Jordan talked about congressional pardons, but he never asked me for one. It was more for an update on whether the White House is going to pardon members of Congress. Mr. Gomer asked for one as well. Mr. Perry asked for a pardon too. I'm sorry, I need to finish.
Oh my God.
Did he talk to you directly?
Yes, he did.
Did Marjorie Taylor Greene contact you?
No, she didn't contact me about it. I heard that she had asked White House Counsel's Office for a pardon from Mr. Philbin, but I didn't frequently communicate with Ms. Greene.
Are you aware of any conversations
What
or
is this?
communications
Are you
regarding
at a
the
glamour
possibility of
shots?
giving Congressman Matt Gaetz a pardon?
I'm calling from the edge of the
I know he had asked for it, but I don't know if he ever received one or what happened with it.
What is going on?
How do you know that Congressman Gaetz asked for a pardon?
He told me.
Tell us about that.
He told me he'd asked Meadows for a pardon.
Wow, that's
Were you
great.
involved
great
in, or
storytelling.
did you
Thank
witness any
It's awesome.
conversations about the possibility of a blanket pardon for everyone involved in January 6th?
I had heard that mentioned. Yeah.
Do you know whether the president had any conversations about potentially pardoning any family members?
I know he had hinted at a blanket pardon for the January 6th thing for anybody, but I think he had for all the staff and everyone involved, not with January 6th, but just before he left office, I know he had talked about that.
The only reason I know to ask for a
That
pardon.
guy looks like an Ian Photoshop.
That's not that bad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
I want to thank our witnesses for joining us today. The members of the Select Committee may have additional questions for today's witnesses, and we ask that you respond expeditiously in writing to these questions. Without objection, members will be permitted 10 business days to submit statements
I
for the
think
record,
Cheney is the last thing.
including opening remarks and additional questions for the witnesses. Without objection, the chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois for a closing statement.
I guess not.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Justice Department lawyers are not the president's personal lawyers. We count on them to be on the side of the law and to defend the best interest of the United States, not the best interest of any political campaign. That's how it's been since the department was founded soon after the Civil War. Justice Department lawyers are supposed to play it 100% straight. President Trump tried to erase his loss at the ballot box by parachuting an unqualified man into the top job at Justice. It was a power play to win at all costs with no regard for the will of the American people. It was about ignoring millions of votes. Ignore them, throw them out, label them fraudulent, corrupt, illegal, whatever. Facts were clearly just an inconvenience. From the Oval Office, President Trump urged others to bring his big lie to life. He begged, just say the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman. He didn't care what the department's investigations proved. What good were facts when they would only confirm his loss? And it's no surprise that all the far-out, fully fabricated, whack job conspiracy theories collapsed under even the slightest scrutiny. That insanity went from the internet to the highest levels of government in no time. The bottom line, the most senior leadership of the Justice Department, from Attorney General Bill Barr to Jeff Rosen, his successor and his deputy Rich Donahue, everyone except Jeff Clark, was telling President Trump the very same thing. The conspiracy theories were false. The allegation of a stolen election was a lie. The data left no room for doubt, nothing to question. And the Constitution left no room for President Trump to change the outcome of the election. But we're here today because the facts were irrelevant to President Trump.
No shit.
It was about protecting his very real power and very fragile ego, even if it required recklessly undermining our entire electoral system by wildly casting baseless doubt upon it. In short, he was willing to sacrifice our republic to prolong his presidency. I can imagine no more dishonorable act by a president. We owe a great debt of gratitude to these men you've heard from here today.
Bless you.
Real leaders
who
stood for justice when it was in grave peril, who put their country first when the leader of the free world demanded otherwise. They threatened to resign rather than corrupt our democracy. And thanks largely to each of them, President Trump's coup failed. Contrast that to Jeff Clark, who would do exactly what the president wanted.
Throwing
Say there
out
was
those
massive
C-word.
fraud, forget the facts, and leave the rest to President Trump's congressional friends. Mr. Clark refused to cooperate with this committee. He pled the fifth over 125 times. Why risk self-incrimination? And President Trump's congressional friends, some of them are angling for pardons. They knew that every bit of what they did was a lie and it was wrong.
Fucking A.
Yeah.
That's all the
I don't
more
need a
reason
pardon.
to
Do
respect
you need a
those
pardon?
who came here to testify
I need a fucking
today.
pardon.
You need a pardon
We
for it.
thank them for their unflinching service in the face of incredible pressure. As it said, the only thing necessary for evil to succeed is good men to do nothing. Thankfully, there were good people in the Department of Justice. You heard from other good people, too, on Tuesday. They, too, defended us. But I'm still worried that not enough has changed to prevent this from happening again. The oath that we take has to mean something. It has to cut to the core of who we are and be the driving force of our service to this nation. We on this committee, we may be able to shine light on the darkness, but that is not enough. It's now up to every American, now and in the future, to stand for truth, to reject the lies wherever we confront them, in our towns, in our capitals, in our friendships, in our families, and at the ballot box, and within our own minds and hearts. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Without objection, the chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Wyoming, Ms. Cheney, for a closing statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I again want to thank the witnesses for being here today. After today, I suspect that there will be some who label you agents of the deep state or something else conspiratorial or nonsensical, meant to justify ignoring what you've said today, ignoring the facts. That may be the short-term cost of acting honorably and telling the truth, but your actions should have an important long-term impact. They will help keep us on the course set by the framers of our Constitution. Let me paraphrase the words of John Adams and others. Whether ours shall continue to be a government of laws and not of men is ultimately for the American people to decide. And let me also today make a broader statement to millions of Americans who put their trust in Donald Trump. In these hearings so far, you've heard from more than a dozen Republicans who've told you what actually happened in the weeks before January 6th. You will hear from more in the hearings to come. Several of them served Donald Trump and his administration, others in his campaign. Others have been conservative Republicans for their entire careers. It can be difficult to accept that President Trump abused your trust, that he deceived you. Many will invent excuses to ignore that fact. But that is a fact. I wish it weren't true, but it is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Damn.
Again, I thank our witnesses and thank my colleagues for this hearing. As we conclude our fifth hearing in this series, I want to remind the American people of a few things the committee has shown. Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. Top Republican officials
This
who
is on
supported
Fox
Trump
News now, by the way.
knew
Is
that
it? They're
he
showing
lost
it now?
They're showing it
and
midday.
told
Yeah.
him he lost.
They didn't show the
First one.
primetime
Knew
one,
he
but they're
lost.
showing the supposedly.
Those who say the election was
He's doing
affected
this
by
talk to
widespread
people
voter
that-
fraud are lying. They were lying in 2020, they were lying in 2021, and indeed, they are lying today. Donald Trump went to court.
That guy at the bottom is
That's
like,
the
they're lying.
right any candidate
This is
seeking
what
to
this
challenge
does.
the
Everybody's
outcome
lying.
of an election must do. Donald Trump lost in court dozens and dozens of times. He lost in part because there was no evidence
These
that
people are
voter
so
fraud
talented,
had
man.
any impact
The ASL people
on the
that go to
results
that
Oh,
fast,
it's
so
awesome.
talented.
To borrow a phrase from our witness earlier this week, Mr. Bowers, all he had was theories and no evidence. As I've said, if you're running for office in the United States, that's the end of the line. You accept the court's judgment, you concede the race, you respect the rule of law and the will of the voters. But for Donald Trump, that wasn't the end of the line, not even close. The voters refused to keep him in office. The courts refused to keep him in office, but he continued to lie, and he went in search of anyone who would go along with his scheme. And we've shown today, he pressured the Justice Department to act as an arm of his
pressured
He
the
pressured the
re-election
justice. I
campaign.
saw that.
He hoped law enforcement officials would give the appearance of legitimacy to his lies, so he and his allies had some veneer of credibility when they told the country that the election was stolen. Earlier this week, we showed how Donald Trump brought the weight of the presidency down on local and state officials who are trying to do their jobs and ultimately did. They investigated his claims and found them to be false, and then they endured Trump's pressure campaign at great risk to themselves and their loved ones. And of course, there was a scheme to get the former Vice President, Mike Pence, to violate the law and the Constitution by rejecting the Electoral College votes on January 6th and blocking the peaceful transfer of power. I mentioned the former Vice President last because, as we showed, when he refused to bow to the pressure in those critical moments on January 6th, there was a backup plan for stopping the transfer of power, the mob, and their vile threats. Up to this point, we've shown the inner workings of what was essentially a political coup, an attempt to use the powers of the government from the local level all the way up to overturn the results of the election, find me the votes, send fake electors, just say the election was corrupt. Along the way, we saw threats of violence. We saw what some people were willing to do in the service of the nation, the Constitution, no, in service of Donald Trump.
Yikes.
Pretty fucking good, man.
When the Select Committee continues this series of hearings, we're going to show how Donald Trump tapped into the threat of violence, how he summoned the mob to Washington, and how, after corruption and political pressure failed to keep Donald Trump in office, violence became the last option. Our investigation is ongoing. Those hearings have spurred an influx of new information that the committee and our investigators are working to assess. We are committed to presenting the American people with the most complete information possible. That will be our aim when we reconvene in the coming weeks. The chair, however, requests those in the hearing room remain seated until...
And I shut it off there.
Yeah. That was great. Thanks for editing it down.
Man, I'll tell you. There's two
hell of a wrap up.
What the fuck? Like, you get a chance to see these people from earlier in the week to now. He's trying to manipulate people at a lower level than the federal government.
Right.
He's doing it at a state level. When he's talking to people from Arizona, when he's talking to people from Georgia, when he's and he's trying to go after those people, he's talking to people from Michigan, talking to people from all these places. He had people come to the fucking White House, and so it's been. And then talking about at the federal level, so they're getting him coming and going. And the other thing too is he's mentioning, I think they're just going to say like he's the one who incited the mob. So it's like it's not just one charge. Like it feels like there's so much that they're charging that they're laying out for the Justice Department to pick up.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like if you're Merrick Garland, you're watching this.
Yeah,
he
said as much.
Like,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like this, and they are doing they're fastidious about this, and I love that it's Republicans interviewing Republicans.
Yeah,
because that's credibility.
Yeah,
that's credibility.
Yeah,
it's good, man.
It's great. It's been great so far. Okay. Whoo. Thank you guys for joining us. We are gonna bounce because we got other stuff to do. We have one more little short thing to do, and I want to go to bed. I'm tired. I had a long day. So we're gonna bounce.
Thank you guys for sticking with us.
Yeah,
it's awesome. Thank
you guys. We appreciate it. And like I say, while you're here, make sure you do the thummies and the up thumbs and all that stuff. Put your thumb where it belongs. That sort of thing.
And if you want to stick your thumb where it belongs, you can head over to adamandeve.com at our Gloria checkout.
I will say this, like we will moan if you put it in the right place. So just click it. Oh, that's the stuff. All right, we got to go. Ian, we got to go. Ian.
Hey.
Did you buy your thing? Did you buy your thing? Did you buy the thing?
Did you buy your noise canceling headphones or whatever you need?
Can't you tell how unnoisy it is?
You got to get a sound guy, dude. It was so
awesome. He sounded like he was in like a 1978 Vega when he was on. That was awesome.
Ian is always going somewhere. Ian is like, he is the fucking busiest man in show business. Jesus Christ.
I should. Oh, you know what I'll do? Before Ian closes us out, let me call up the thing he was on this week because I heard him talk on the YouTube. So let me call it up.
Ethan, what are you talking about?
You have 15 seconds to close me down before I call it up, Ian. You better hurry up.
What are you calling up?
I don't
even know what you're calling up.
A Zoomer versus Boomer thing? Hold on, let me call it up. Quick.
No.
You better get on that computer. You better get on the computer.
I'm not logged in.
Good.
That means Cecil's going to win. Cecil's going to win. You are going to lose.
In a winner net.
No, stop.
What? Stop what?
There we go.
Stop. What are we doing? I don't know what we're talking about.
There it is.
Okay.
I'm not a 3D printer. You're a 3D printer.
All right, we got to go, everybody. So long.
Bye, guys.